Architectural Board of Review for September 3rd, 2024. We'll start with roll call, please.
Thank you. I'll proceed with roll call. Chair Anderson.
Here.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Six.
Here.
Board Member Soffren.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Great. We will now open public comment for any item that is not on today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. I will, if anyone in the audience wishes to make a general public comment, they can fill out a slip and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. I will check virtual attendance, and at this time, I do not see any hands raised for general public comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence for general public comment. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Great. We will close public comment and go on to the approval of the minutes from the ABR meeting on August 19th. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any
Under discussion,
Yes.
on item 3, I have a new comment. I think we missed an important one. Whether it's hidden in the existing ones or not, I don't know. But we were concerned with the materials on the front property Corten walls. I don't think we got that in there. So they had, so I would suggest that we say provide another material to replace the front property Corten walls, and where possible set back same walls to provide landscape in front of walls. Do you guys remember that? And would that be a fair assessment of the meeting?
I do remember it, and I would approve of the change.
Would Board Member Soffren and be okay with that?
Yes, I agree.
And is that okay with staff?
Board Member 6, can you please repeat that comment? I believe comment number 2 under this motion says something similar. Perhaps we can rephrase number 2 or include it.
I was thinking it would be better to have a new one because it was important to set back the walls to provide landscape. So if we, because, which one is it? Where did we mention the Corten?
Comment number 2 says create an alternative solution to replace the Corten on the side wall of the property.
Okay, if you want to include then,
Or even comment 1, it says more greenery at the front of the structure. Is that?
okay, so if we simply say an alternative solution to replace, on number 2, we could say create an alternative solution to replace the Corten on the side and front property
Okay.
walls.
That would be acceptable.
Okay.
Okay, is that good with Vice Chair Whalen?
Changes are
Okay.
acceptable to the motion.
Great, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson.
Yes, I watched the recording.
Vice Chair Whalen.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Six.
Yes.
Board Member Soffren.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the consent meeting on July 22nd.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, let's move on to the consent meeting minutes for August 5th.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, and the consent meeting on August 19th.
Yeah, motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, now let's look at ratifying the action taken on the consent calendar for August 26th.
Motion to ratify?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. I think, are there any?
One more.
No, we didn't have one today.
Chair Anderson, yeah, if I may just make an announcement about today's consent calendar. That was canceled because item A 103 West, postponed 103 West Calle Crespus was postponed to a date certain of September 16th. And then the item 2 on here, 33790 State Street, that was an error and should not be included on this agenda. That one will be heard on September 9th. So, yeah, just an announcement that consent was canceled. Thank you.
Okay, and then is there any, that's it for general business? Oh, here, sorry. Announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, appeals.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I just want to introduce myself, Ellen Kokinda. I know everyone, and Board Member Anderson, it's good to see you formally. I know you've been here for a while now, but great to be back, and you can always reach out to me if there's any questions or if you need support. And I just wanted to share, I've reached out to everyone whose term will be ending in December. We do have a deadline for September 25th at 5 o'clock through the City Clerk's office. Let me know if you have any questions about the submittal process, and we certainly are looking forward for you all to reapply for those of you who are interested and I've talked to. Thank you so much for continuing to serve the city. So thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. Okay, any subcommittee reports?
Yes, Chair Anderson. This may be a little after the fact, but I was the appointed member for the airport subcommittee commission meeting for the expansion. Those meetings have concluded. I just wanted to report that they have now a phased plan for the airport. That'll be 5 to 10 years for the new terminal, and we were presented with quite exact drawings, but those were really concept drawings, so I didn't want the commission to buy into any solution that was presented. They had a series of over 20 meetings, 3 public meetings. Now they're into the lengthy environmental review process. We could expect some plan for the curbside improvements. That's where you pick up and drop off within the next 5 to 10 years. There is a proposal for a parking garage, but that seems to be about 20 years out. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Just clarification, so we saw a proposal for the expansion, correct, here in this, at this meeting?
We did.
What came of that?
Well, those were accepted by the commission, but they're only concept. They're not even preliminary, right? But it's just a general notion of the disposition, the site where it might happen. We were given fully blown illustrations. Those aren't really what is proposed.
Oh.
Although we did go through a lot of trouble on those, but that's what we do.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would just like to add, thank you, Board Member Whalen, for your service.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to item number 1. This is a new item for concept review. It's 1611 Castillo Street. It's a proposal for 5 new residential units under the AUD incentive program with 5 automobile parking spaces, 4 spaces provided in covered carports and 1 uncovered accessible space, and 5 bicycle parking spaces. The existing development includes a 3-unit apartment building with 3 covered parking spaces and is proposed to remain. Building permits in review for site improvements, including a new driveway, parking area, trash room, landscaping, and for 2 new detached 1-story special dwelling unit, accessory dwelling units. Staff, before we start.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Anderson. Just a couple of comments. So it is a new item here for concept review. It has undergone its first round of application completeness review, and there are numerous incomplete items to address from zoning, transportation, and environmental services. So we're looking for feedback from ABR today on overall mass bulk scale and everything for concept review. So
Okay,
thank you.
thanks. Okay, well, welcome. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, you have control of the plans and you can walk us through your design.
Great. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Anderson and board members. The project is an AUD project, adding a total of 5 units to an existing site with 3 existing units in a single building now. The property owner has pursued, and we have pursued 2 other permits for the property that are approved and awaiting permit pulling for the 2 special ADUs in the back of the property and a complete new regrading of the driveway and entrance and closing of one of the street curb cuts that are existing. So lots of improvements going on at the site. I will say that I had a meeting with Jessica Grant this morning over the transportation items, and we've solved all of those. So, and the incomplete letter to date. So parking-wise, 1 parking space per unit per AUD requirements. The ADUs did not go through this process, obviously, because of the nature of that permit. But what we were really attempting to do was to create a collection of almost single-family looking units rather than a large block of 5 apartment units. And you'll see that as we get to some renderings later on. I do have elevations and some quick renderings of the ADUs that are already approved. They are a single-story, mostly flat roof. That will be where the site's PV system will be. But the other units that we're creating here under the AUD program are standard hip roofs to match the existing roof of the building, which you see here. Again, we're on the corner of Castillo and Arriaga. And most of the buildings under this permit will be along Castillo and down the diagonal property line. It veers further and further away from Arriaga Street, and it drops quite considerably. There's about a 12 to 15 foot drop from Castillo Street all the way back to the farthest reaches of the property. So here's a look at the site plan. These are the 2 ADUs, single story, already approved. A couple of existing oak trees here, which we're maintaining. You can see how we kind of arranged everything around those 2 oak trees. That'll be our major outdoor shared space for the residents of the entire property. One thing we will be pursuing is the alternative open yard design option, so we will be looking for your board's approval of that. And then the intent was in recreating the new driveway, curb cut, new parking area, auto court, ADA space, was to create a couple of walk-up individual-looking units on the street. So Castillo Street truly has two-story townhouse units that are front doors oriented toward Castillo Street. And then as we step down the hillside here, we've got 3 more units that go down the site. And again, by the time you get down to this back site, you're below street grade quite significantly. So 4 of the units are 2-story townhouses, very small-sized, efficient units, with the ground level being open, the major public spaces, kitchen, dining, living, outdoor space where we can, and the upper level is 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. 2 bedrooms, single bathroom, sorry. So these are just small 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath units. There's 1 unit that's poised over this 3-car carport area, and that's a flat, single-story flat. It's also a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. And we can see how those plans lay out there on the upper level. One of the challenges is the fact that this is viewed by the city as a secondary front yard, even though, as you can see, there's a lot of city-owned property here. So we were just able to make that secondary extra 10 feet setback work. It is, however, limiting our ability to put second-floor balconies off of the bedrooms on that side, because, of course, we can go no more than 3 feet over the property line with a projection. And as you know, per the AUD, you need a 6-foot deep deck to get credit for that. So that's one of the reasons we're going after the alternative outdoor design. Each unit will have exterior private space where possible, whether that counts or not toward the open space requirement. So simple hip roofs to match the existing building, each identified with its own set of framing. So again, to promote the look of these being 5 different buildings rather than one big connected building with corridors. The materiality is basically a cement panel, cementitious panel, naturally colored rain screen with a highlight or a accent material of vertical light wood. That also would be a natural wood product, one of the thermally modified products out there now. So it will gray and age over time. And this, of course, is in line with the 2 ADUs that are proposed. So I just thought I'd bring a few things. They're identical floor plan layout, 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, and those are some quick renders showing the concrete panels and the vertical wood detailing. Again,
If we
Just
could
hang
ask
on
City
one second.
TV to zoom in on these images.
so nothing here appearance-wise over 2 stories.
Hang on one second.
Oh, sure.
One second while we pull it up on the screen.
I can pass this down. You guys wanna see?
It appears we're having some technical
Okay.
difficulties.
Keep
Perhaps we
going
can
and we'll come
return
back
to
to
this portion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the buildings, the one that's part of the grading permit, where we're having our open bike spaces down on the driveway area now, will eventually become the formal bike room, and we can see that right here. So half of the lowest level, which is 10 feet below street grade, would be a single car space and the bike room. We have been told in our incomplete letter that the front yard setback on Castillo would potentially create a problem for us in that the setback language, which we think is clear, is that it should be relevant to the setback on the property line where it occurs. And so it seems the city has this thought of applying this as a third-story building. Therefore, we only get one story along the street that would be allowed with the 10-foot setback, meaning that this second floor of this unit would essentially be seen as the third floor, meaning it needs to set back an additional 10 feet. So we would ask your understanding of the setback language and value and evaluate whether that is a realistic element to be dealt with here. Obviously, this building stays as is without the increased setback, secondary setback on a third level or higher. So anyway, you can see very simple, smallish, boxy type designs, but again, creating recesses. This is the stair that wraps up to this first floor, so we chose to highlight that. Using green roofs to add some plantings on the upper level is one of the goals as well. And again, using an accent material of a natural wood color. You can see there's one of the balconies on the upper bedroom here, cantilevered out. But again, we can't do that on all of them. So here are the views from basically the corner. So this would be the one corner unit closest to the bus stop. As you go down Castillo Street, this would be the other two-story unit that would be visible from the street. Everything else would be quite dramatically lowered from street level as you get down to the bottom of the property. You can see them kind of tracking down the hill as we get there. And then again, the ADUs are in the bottom in the far back. This would be the view from the bus stop, would be just off of the shot here. This would be the view as you're getting onto the freeway along Arriaga. So you just see a two-story unit at the corner, and then the two-story unit starts stepping down dramatically, and then there's this single-story flat over the carport and the two-story unit beyond. I can just see kind of, this is the big oak tree area that would be shared common open space, and this is the beginning of one of the single-story ADUs here on the right of this shot. And so I tried to create an open carport here where, as much as possible, part of that is retaining quite a bit of earth as we step down the hill, but still getting glimpses through the building, trying to make them look smaller, breaking them up in massing, and be sensitive to the two facing street units as truly walk-up style units. And that's really it. Stressing on natural materials, I think, is one of the things that we're looking at. We've been real successful in using the modified, thermally modified lumbers as sidings in the past, and they look quite beautiful and age quite nicely. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's open up public comment for item number 1.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular item. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill out a slip and bring it to me. It looks like we have someone moving to do so while he...
Not for this item? Okay.
All right. So we will move on to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for this particular item for virtual comment. And we did receive several written letters for this project. We received a letter from D. Erdman, Mark Capelli, Juliana Erdman, Sherry McKinney, Pat Saley, Christine Newhauser, and Linda Williams. At that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, thank you. We will close public comment for item number 1. And we will open up questions from the board. And Board Member 6, would you like to begin?
Certainly, thank you, Chair Anderson. What is the status of the previously approved ADUs, and how are they permitted and ready
They
to
are
go?
ready for permit pulling, yes. They are approved. They've gone through everything. The only thing to do is pay the school fees and pull the permits.
And how are they reviewed? They were reviewed by staff under the ADU program?
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Ms. Chairs, may I interrupt briefly just to comment? So some ADUs qualify for just to go straight to the building permit process, and there's ministerial design criteria that's included in, or that's within our municipal code. So if an applicant can show that they meet the ministerial design criteria, then all it needs is a building permit, and therefore does not have to get a planning application together or come to a design review board for approval.
Okay, thanks. If we could go to the site plan. It just occurred to me that the existing, 3-unit complex.
Correct.
The cars back out, and I think cars require only 24, 25 feet, and you've got about 38 there. And I can see where Unit F's parking is on the far end there next to that sloping planter. I wondered if you considered flipping that ground floor so you could get a lot of planting in front of the unused, the window of a flipped bicycle parking, and add about 8 feet of parking in that vast sea of paving. Is there a technical reason that that was not considered? Do you want to go to the floor plan on that?
So you're talking about the lower
Yes.
level down here, right? Where would we put the bike room versus the parking space? It could easily be flipped.
And could you not then add in front of, not obviously not the doorway, but that window wall on the bike side, where the bikes are, could that not be a continuous on-grade landscape that
Yeah, I
could almost
see
go
what you're
all the way
getting
to
at.
the end of the?
The current building is a 1-car garage here and 2 uncovered carport spaces, so there is a car coming out right here.
I understand. It only takes about 24 feet, and you've got about 38.
Sure, if we were to flip that bottom level, that would be something that could be considered.
Okay, so there's no technical
Yeah.
reason. Okay, and so you've explained the materials. Are we, and the windows and doors are, given this architecture, flush with the walls, or they're not inset, correct?
They're inset as much as they can be. The exterior walls are 6-inch walls, not 2x4, so there will be some offset there. It is an aluminum clad wood system, window and door system. So they're
So we
not
won't-
as thick as a 2x6 wall.
So you're going to attempt to have a inset window?
A couple of inches, yeah.
Okay. And I heard that we're to comment on an open yard deviation. Can you explain that so we can be comfortable with?
Yeah, under the AUD, there's the standard method, which is 15% plus private outdoor spaces for each unit based on their number of bedrooms and what level it's on in that unit. And as I said, the secondary front yard setback prevents us from overhanging into that secondary front yard along Arriaga, so it makes it challenging to get balconies to work on those upper story units, because we'd like to put a balcony on each of the bedrooms, or at least one on every building. So the alternative open yard is you give a larger common space, 20 by 20 feet, which we could easily do under the oak trees here.
Okay, so
And
that's,
then we stick with just the 15%.
that's pretty typically done, yes.
It's hard on some of these type.
And then, so then you're not counting individual balconies as open yard, and therefore, the size of the overhang and size of the balcony on unit F is not driven by your need to get a certain dimension of open yard?
That is correct, with the caveat that one of the solutions from transportation on this parking space, adhering to their, since this is three-side closed, because we can't have this open because it's 10 feet below street there, grade, they will look at it as a garage. So in that case, they want a 10-foot wide by 20-foot covered overhead. And they were willing to acknowledge that this overhang on the upper level could qualify for that. So all I would say is it wouldn't need to be 6 feet deep, but it needs to be 3, I believe, to make sure we make that. So,
And you could
we're-
still handle that if you flipped your ground floor?
yes,
correct? Okay.
yes, then it would be over the bike room, yeah.
All right. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Chair Anderson, into Board Member 6, I just wanted to clarify about the alternative open yard. So that is a waiver that they'll be requesting when they return for project design approval, and you'll be granting it at that stage. And there are certain findings that you will have to make in order to grant the waiver, and I'm not able to show them on the screen right now, but I can read them quickly. Just that it may be granted if the alternative open yard design is necessary to provide flexibility in architectural style or site organization, such as the preservation of natural features and enhanced circulation, shared amenities, or the protection/creation of scenic views. And B, approval of the alternative open yard design will meet the purpose of the required open yard as described in this section. So just to keep those findings in mind when they
thank you.
return.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Whalen, questions?
Thank you, Chair Anderson. The first one, you told us about the wall building materials, a cementitious panel and the wood. What's the roof material?
The roof is standing seam metal for the hip roofs. The roof is a membrane roof for the PV roof of the ADU, so that is a different condition. But the ones that are visible, standing seam is the...
Very good. Now, I appreciate what a challenging site this is spatially. There are 2 existing curb cuts shown on the existing plan. Can you, with your cursor, show me where those driveways are in relationship to the proposed one?
The proposed one here is very close to where it is. We're hoping to salvage it and use it. If not, it'll be repoured and in the same basic location. The second one is about here and is tied to a slab that goes into the property now that will, of course, be demoed as well.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I believe I understand the patios of units J, H, and G are all on, well, shall we call it the southwest face? All right. Let's see. On your image number 2,
The existing?
that one, yes. Photo number 2, I'm looking down in the lower right. No,
Yeah.
I'm looking down into the access well.
To the unit that's existing, that is lower off street level than the other 2. So the other 2 come right off of the sidewalk with this bridge here to get to them.
That was
This
easy
walkway.
to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one
This is that spatial dynamics of the
Right.
site I was trying to soak in.
with some topography.
And then on your image number 10,
Yes.
no, I'm sorry, not photo number 10, sheet number
Gotcha.
4. That's 3, 4.
Sheet 4?
No, 10,
Oh, 10.
8, 9, 10. One more. coming right up any minute now.
There we go. There's 9.
Number 3, overshot.
There we go.
Image number 3,
Yes.
or
Zoom in.
oh, so that's looking from the bus stop. Let's go to image number 2. Are we looking up the driveway?
Correct.
Which is barely visible.
Correct. You can
It's
see it winds
adjacent to
around the
that
main
stair,
planter.
right.
Right.
And then I think my final question, on that unit F, your elevation, it's sheet, image number 8, number 2. Is that a glass railing? It just appears to be a white blank material on the elevation.
Yeah, it wouldn't be glass. We did just leave it like that in its conceptual state, but it would be a
Conceptually
vertical
glazed.
steel. Yeah.
I think that's all of my questions, Chair Anderson. Thank you.
Sorry, what did you say? I got distracted.
He did notice this is shown as a plane of glass, this balcony, but it would be a vertical steel rail.
It really shows up on your sheet
there's-
number 10.
Back on this one, right?
No.
Oops, it goes through. Yeah, this guy.
Okay.
It's back in there, yeah.
Board Member Black, questions?
I find the architectural style pretty distinctive for the neighborhood, and I was just wondering whether you could discuss what your inspiration and how you would describe this architectural style and how it might relate to the neighborhood.
Well, I mean, some of it is about the breaking down of the massing itself. It's a challenging site, it's a sloping site. The original building's solution to that was to create a bridge that got you over to the units as you went further away from the street. We wanted to separate them, treat them as truly unique-looking residences, so even though it's an apartment development, each person understands their unit within the greater mix of those units, right? It's easily identifiable, and that's really what we were going for. These are very tight units, very small, efficient, and so playing off of that, we wanted to show that, marching down the site, and again, break up the mass and keep the amount that's on Castillo Street. Almost looks as if it's 3 properties with 3 different residences on it. So it was mostly a scale intent. So with the really small nature of the units, we just looked for interesting opportunities to carve massing away so that it wasn't a full 4-sided box, 2 stories tall. So we did things like create these indentations and everything and utilize the stair to do that. And the lower units, you can just kind of see the lower living area here is cut back to create another recessed chunk that's been pulled away from the mass of the box.
No other questions?
Board Member Noon?
Yeah, I would just like for you to maybe expand on that a little more. I understand your response on massing, but how the specific architecture of the unit, of each unit, how's that, where do you find compatibility, and what's your reference for the neighborhood?
We see them as simple, boxy shapes, not unlike a lot of housing typologies, with a simple hip roof that addresses very standard wood-framed roofs. Obviously, you can see this hipped roof on the existing building. They're also throughout the neighborhood quite readily. And so we're, duplicating that form. And so really it's how do we get a really compact, efficient unit, keep the massing simple, keep it separate, and then try to show a couple of forms that would be represented in a simple craftsman box style house with a hip roof or a bungalow type look. That's more of an ode to, I think. Yet being a little more contemporary than, something built in an era when it wasn't built.
That's it for now.
Board Member Sofferin?
No questions.
Board Member Anderson?
What are the materials again? You said, I know there's the thermally modified wood, and then there's the rain screen is what?
Yeah, it's a cementitious panel, about 5/16 thick, and it's held off the building in a rain screen fashion, just like the wood would be. Rain screens are better for building efficiency, heating, cooling, performance. Water gets behind it and gets out. But it's more in the charcoal gray or medium gray shade. There's 3 different shades available. They would be exposed fasteners from the exterior, but color-coded to the color of the panel. But again, it looks like it's burnished stucco. It looks like a real, not a painted finish. We really wanted to avoid paint as
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what the, what the interest or curiosity was in the material, in the dialogue of the wood and the fiber cement, and what kind of wood are we talking about, and what is the panelization of the fiber cement, and then there's the fasteners, of course. So there's a kind of, a little bit of I think the renderings are a little deceptive in that they don't, tell that story. So I'm curious what your kind of view on that is.
in terms of the joints and the mechanical fasteners.
Yeah, and also just kind of when we talk about it's a gray fiber cement panel, so that could be expressed in a lot of ways, and that's what I'm kind of curious, and why fiber cement,
It's so fiber cement is super durable. And it naturally doesn't need any finishing. It doesn't get repainted. It doesn't get restained. It doesn't get resealed. Rain screens are, in my opinion, the best way to go for exterior buildings these days in terms of the air gap, providing assurance against leaks and energy efficiency.
Yeah.
And I will bring in, we have a mock-up panel that I almost brought today, but I figured I'd bring it the next time around, and we would get closer to deciding what wood species. There's all kinds of wood species that they're doing now with these thermally treated. In other words, they're injecting steam into them to make them insect resistant, fire resistant, things like that.
Yeah, so there's a longevity thing. And I understand the performance of rain screens. I'm just curious regarding some of the other questions about, where did this kind of language come from exactly? And I think the architecture looks good. I'm just curious about, what your curiosity was in fiber cement and wood cladding. And I think you're saying it's purely functional, sounds like.
It's performance-based, functional-based, but the big connection to steel troweled smooth stucco, which is so relevant here, of course, is that this looks very much like that, only in a panel. So it has that natural modeling, and the deeper the color, sometimes the more modeling you get. So, steel troweled stucco is everywhere here, and we just wanted a rain screen version, the modern interpretation of that same smooth finish. It looks good, and it's got that natural modeling that says this is a natural material. We're not painting it and repainting it and changing the color 5 years down the road, and it will always be itself.
Okay.
I just have a few questions. Can you walk us through the location of the green roofs?
The green roofs in the plans. They're really just the ADA unit on the lower level. I'll show them to you in this site. So go to the second level. So in the standard townhouse units, these 3, and partially this one too, this is the ADA unit. The ADA unit needs a bigger bathroom, so we've got a little bit of additional lower level roof here to cover, so that would be a green roof. And then we pocketed in some green roofs in each of the stair riser wells, if you will, in addition to a skylight that would get natural light down into the lower level. We had bracketed those with areas for green, so that from the street you'll see some green, from the property you'll get to see numerous parts of green within the composition.
Okay. And then did you have, I mean, it seems like where there's circulation, that's where you intend to put the modified wood. Is that the language you're going for, is like far as a design rule that you create?
It a little bit is that's true. It's really where do we violate the overall box, and when we carve away the box, it's another material, and by and large. Now, we did add panels of siding to bring it back less to this whole gray facade, I would say. But yes, it's the idea of, taking in count, a coconut and saying there's a skin and there's an inside. That's very different.
Okay. And then can you walk us through your plate heights?
Yeah. Nothing terribly elaborate. 10-foot floor to floor from first level to second, so we're hoping for a 9-foot ceiling. And then the upper level is no more than that. I'm trying to see if we say that. Including the roof pitch, we get 14, but I would venture to say that we made those 8'6" ceilings, I believe, is the intent. So nothing.
Okay. Was there any consideration to flipping the program where you would put the bedrooms on the first floor, living on the second, so that you could reduce that plate height and vault the ceiling?
We did consider that for a little bit. We really wanted the connectivity of the stuff on the ground to be more evident. In other words, the 2 walk-up units that face Castillo, we wanted more activity being on the lower level, on that street level. And that was really one of the factors.
Okay. And then you don't have any plans to upgrade the existing units, the 3?
No changes to the units themselves. They were just, the building was repainted recently, so yeah. But the existing has been, when it changed hands, they fixed it up. And
Okay, follow-up questions?
I have one
Yeah.
follow-up question. I was, mechanical? How are you dealing with mechanical? Is it just ground-mounted around the properties?
it's either that or the through ceilings or wall units that are dual. Yeah, the spaces are so small, we can probably get away with those. So that would just be as a vent on the exterior.
And then, so that would be like, you're saying a through wall?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We haven't done mechanical quite yet,
Yeah.
but
Board Member 6?
Yeah, I think that the important thing to me is the previous approved, you're echoing the previously approved ADU unit architecture. Did you consider the risk of going backwards through this process where you'd get your main building on the front streets approved and then have your ADUs follow? But were you advised that there was a risk here to this backwards process?
I don't know that we saw it as a risk. You're saying in that there is some intent to circumvent.
No,
the
I'm not.
process,
I'm
or-
not. But
Originally, the determination from the owner was that they wanted those 2 units built. We're only this far into it because Creek's department, for whatever reason, wanted to stipulate the entire property was part of Mission Creek. And so we went on for months and months of delays fighting over that, only to have them finally realize that they were asking for something that they couldn't have. So those should be built already. frankly. And so it's been a hardship for the owner to have to wait all this time to get just those 2 units. They wanted to generate some income with those 2 units,
I get it.
redo the units, and
Okay.
yeah.
Chair Anderson, may I also respond to Board Member Six's question? So I do want to clarify that in our accessory dwelling unit ordinance, as I mentioned earlier, there's ministerial design criteria. If an ADU is proposed within 20 feet of a primary residence, then it needs to match, or there needs to be similarities in the design and colors and styles. But if this particular site, the ADUs are over 20 feet away, so it doesn't have that matching requirement. So hopefully that provides a little bit more context, and that's, again, citywide for multi-unit lots to single family.
Maybe you can just walk us through the visuals from Castillo and Arriaga again, and the height difference, before we go into comments.
So you can see our existing building is the 2-story here, 1-story along the street, because of course there's a drop. All this stair gets removed and rebuilt with new concrete stair and retaining walls and everything in the development. But yeah, I mean, this was, if you look at this is really essentially from the property a 2-story, simple hipped roof, boxy structure, and that's really where we tried to give indications of that without being, literal and using the same exact detailing. And again, both these units are have a continuous corridor to get to them on the upper level. So yes, our project here is a 1-story in terms of what it looks like from the street. The property right next door, you can see this 2-story. That's a flat 2-story front-face building. That is actually a 3-story building because it has parking below it. As you go down the property, they have a similar slope to ours. So what looks like 2 stories on the front is 3 stories, and that's where our building here would be. It looks like 2 stories from the street, but it's 3 stories by nature of it, accepting
Maybe we
that
can
10
go
foot.
to your renderings, page 10, and show us what you can see from the street.
So these are the 2 units that you would see from Castillo Street. That's it. Everything behind this building is behind it and stepping down the hill. So there's one 2-story building here, street, front walk-up, front door right on Castillo. Same with this unit, same 2 stories. And then there's the 1-story existing apartment building of ours. But again, here's the 2-story building that's right next to our 1-story building with a big flat roof. And so, yeah, so the other view is just looking down,
Yeah, that
stepping down Arriaga, right? But we're already a whole story below. So it's really only 2-story here, and it's 1.5 here, and then it's back to 1 story from as far as what's visible.
Okay. Any follow-up questions before we go into comments? Okay, Board Member 6, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Anderson. I don't have any problems with the massing, not even the front 2-story, 2 stories facing Castillo. There's a big white box, just 3 or 4 properties down. And these are these are even thinner than that. They're less wide, even if they're slightly over. So I don't have any problem with the massing. I think it's a very interesting design how it steps down, creative. And I would support your argument, or I would not support the city's argument that the 3-story, quote unquote, needs to be set back because it's so, the 3rd story is so hidden behind. So if that needs to be part of our deliberation, I could heartily support that. But I see the style and the materials completely incompatible with the neighborhood, and I just, it's just got to radically change its architecture, even though you've committed to your back units. It's just not compatible as far as, besides the materials, including the glass railings, the extent and length of the overhangs, the very modern carved out of the box type thing with its overhangs, the the very sheer and extreme roof edge with its hidden gutters, and just the general expression of the forms is just, we're obligated to see that there's a hint of compatibility with the neighborhood, and this just, it doesn't make it for me.
Vice Chair Whalen?
I'm going to echo some of Member 6 comments. I do think it's a very pleasing and well-honed design in and of itself. The massing, I don't object to. In fact, it's rather reminds me of a circus parade of elephant where it's trunk to tail and each building is relating to one another. I rather enjoy that massing. It occurs to me that this is a rather an auto-centric site plan that's really driven to serve the damn automobiles, and to that extent it seems overpaved, and whatever you could do to reduce that paving would enhance the livability. Related to that, all of the patios face, that is on J, H, and G, face toward the freeway, that constant thrumming noise where perhaps it's more light, but if they were, if the courtyard, the auto court, were more amenable and the patios faced that more public area, that more shared area, that more in a classic Southern California auto court design, it may have more livability. It doesn't occur to me that the patios would be that livable. Now, despite this liberal display of wood as cladding, your claim that you're using natural materials, I don't see this cementitious material and the metal meet that design objective as being natural materials. In fact, the massing, the rather modernistic carving of the buildings lends to it with these proposed materials kind of a dark atmosphere. I don't want to go much farther with my adjectives on that. Now, the Arriaga entry off of 101 is an entry to the city, albeit a minor one, but it is one. And this site has a very clear view as you're introduced from the freeway into the city. You're looking directly into that site. And as was just discussed on the ODDS, this signature site should reflect those qualities of Santa Barbara architecture that, and this was much discussed in the ODD, where what we might call this type of design was prohibited from views off of 101, and that the architecture should reflect more the character of Santa Barbara. And then finally, I see that the existing building is distinctly Monterey style. There again, supporting, that is, with the second-story balcony around a block. I don't see your relationship between the roof angle is extended into the eave of the existing building. I don't see that as anywhere apparent in your building design. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Board Member Black?
Yeah, I do have a problem with the architectural style. think that came up in my questions early on, but yeah, the whole notion of neighborhood compatibility, I think, is an issue here. I know you haven't addressed landscape yet, and I know you will, but it's given the proximity to the 101 and then Arriaga, the on-ramp and off-ramp there, I think it's really, when you get to landscape, it's really going to have to be developed to buffer these masses from the freeway and from Arriaga. I think that would be really important. You sort of suggested that with this rendering in the lower right here, but I mean, I actually like the architectural style, but I just, if we're dealing with neighborhood compatibility, I think it sort of falls short. So in general, I would agree with the comments that have been made as well.
Board Member Noon?
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know that I can add much more to what has already been said. I agree with the compatibility issue. Also agree with the way you've approached what you've described as compatibility in the smaller units and separate, and I think that's totally appropriate, as others have said. But again, the architecture portion, and then again, a need for less paving, more open space, more landscaping, I think would be something that should be identified. Thanks.
Board Member Soffren?
Yeah, I agree with all that's been said. I think the massing's great. It's creative the way you've done what you've done, but I have to agree with sort of like the compatibility. I don't see any compatibility with the neighborhood, and I've just got our guidelines right here, and just assuming that you'll come back again. We've got Part 1 architectural design guidelines, and Section 1 there's area compatibility, but I think also it's important right here to just read out, which is B, areas without distinctive architecture, because there's a bit of a mix of architecture where it says in areas which do not possess examples of distinctive architecture, structures in addition should be designed to lead the area toward designs which are harmonious with Santa Barbara's distinctive built environment. And this goes on, and I think I'd recommend a more thorough study of the guidelines before you take your next crack at this project. But that's about all I've got to say.
Board Member Anderson?
I think it'd be interesting and good to learn more about the facade and how you're thinking about the relationship between the materials. And I think the renderings here convey a nice subtle quality that I view is very much in the spirit of a mass-based architecture here. And I think the choice of a wood and the choice of fiber cement does tell a story that is very similar to the story of, plaster-clad wood buildings here. And I think what I'd be curious about is how are those materials relating to one another, and I think there's a fidelity and resolution in the level of the details that would be nice to kind of understand a little bit better. If it is a rain screen, then there's attachments, and then there's light reflecting off that, but okay, they're going to be painted, but then where are the joint lines and all those panels? Is it indeed like you've shown it in these renderings? Why the choice in vertical? What's the width of those wood members? What's the frequency of those lines? And all of that, I think, it conveys a different sense depending on how you detail it. So I'm curious, and I think it'd be good to bring the facade mock-up to the next one.
Okay. I also agree with the massing. I think it's appropriate for the site. It's appropriate for the neighborhood. I would still consider maybe flipping the program on the front two units on Castillo, maybe just to reduce the height a little so you're a little bit more in relationship to the existing structure on site. In regards to materials, I think that the cementatious panel maybe consider other ways of using it so that would relate to the neighborhood. I don't know if this is like a hardy panel or something similar, not quite hardy.
Similar, but
Okay.
they're much more plastic looking.
Oh, got it. Okay. I mean, I agree with the renderings that are kind of quiet, and I think it's nice to keep it quiet. I don't think it should go like white stucco and say hello. But I think it will be hard to say that the modified wood is compatible with other houses in the neighborhood. So I think when you come back, compare what you're proposing to what's in the neighborhood so that we can find compatibility. And in saying that, study the roof connection at the wall and if we need an overhang or no overhang, and maybe by reducing the height, no overhang's okay, maybe it's not. Yeah. And I also agree with the flipping the basement of Unit F so that you can add more green space to the parking area, and insetting the doors and windows to get some relief on the elevations. And yeah, I think those are my comments. So any follow-up comments?
Can I just add one more?
Yeah.
Just because it's come up, I just think also that the ADUs are separate from this. And even though they're approved, I just hope that the next time you come back, there's not sort of a trying to use how they're approved as a way to justify continuing this architecture, because they're not related to each other. So I think we need to omit and not factor in what that architectural style is of the approved ADUs.
Okay. Making a motion? No.
Chair Anderson, I think I feel two drifts going here. I think that we have to, before we make a motion, we have to settle amongst ourselves. Some people are saying, well, the not asbestos, the cementous paneling could begin to look like plaster, and and if there was a little bit push and pull here, that it could be. And then on the other hand, I sense, at least my opinion is that the forms and the overhangs and the cut-ups and or the carve-ins and so forth, and the internal gutter and so forth are just really not compatible, and would have the forms and the massing, not the overall massing, but the expressions of those forms really have to change to become compatible with the neighborhood. I think I don't think, and there was a couple comments about this being a gateway. I don't think we need to see a full Hispanic expression here because it's a gateway project, but it does have to meet, in my mind, the criteria of compatibility with the neighborhood. So I think maybe we need to settle
Sure.
on just how radical or just how this needs to be approach a compatibility with the neighborhood.
Okay.
Chair Anderson, I would support Member Six's assertions on the project.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I was listening to the comments, I think the majority of people are expressing that this be dramatically changed. I think there's a few of us, or two of us, that are not on the same page as that. So would you like to make a motion?
So I sense that I'm in the majority of the.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I will make a motion for a indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments. The board finds that the basic mass, bulk, and scale of the overall project is compatible, interesting, and acceptable. That, number two, that the applicant shall find every means to rearrange the parking layout to minimize the extent of the motor court. And we went into specifics about that. I think that the board would support a modification for the open yard being served in a common area, given the size and quality of the open yards available, and that the board would support would support not considering the Unit F as a 3-story, and therefore not having to set it back, given that the 3rd story is tucked way behind out of view. That in general, the board finds that the architecture, including the materials and the general expression of the forms, is not compatible with the neighborhood. I don't know if I need to say more than that.
Can I ask a quick question? Ellen, is it in our purview to be able to decide what is considered a 3rd story or what is not?
Chair Anderson, if I may, I was going to comment on that. So I do want to say that that's one of the items that staff has requested additional information from the applicant to show us how height is measured. We have very specific definitions of height and number of stories and the setback requirements and kind of how all of those relate to one another. So it isn't the board's decision. It's more a matter of does it meet height requirements, or does it trigger a setback of any kind, or how does the applicant want to address that? And if there is a modification that will be pursued, because a modification was not agendized on today's calendar and within the agenda, it would have to come back for an additional concept review regardless, with that terminology, with that fee payment and all. So that is something that, again, staff, that's one of the items that's outstanding for this review.
So are you advising us to be politically correct to drop that particular comment?
I think it would, Board Member Six and to Chair Anderson, I think that makes the most sense, because we will be plan checking. That is one of the, again, the request of the applicant to be able to show us that, for us to make that determination, and then that's a separate process.
No, sorry.
Okay, so we will drop the comment on the 3rd story at this time.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Under discussion?
Yes, I would like to add that the views of the project from the Arriaga reflect more of the qualities that are assumed to reflect Santa Barbara architecture.
Can I add something too? I think the views, the way this is rendered, is maybe not enough information to understand some of the qualities of the facade of this building, as renderings can often fall far short of the emotive qualities of materials. And I think it'd be good to see the actual materials in order to understand the aesthetics of this building potentially.
Board
Okay,
Member
so
Anderson, I do not want to include that in my motion, as I have delineated that there's a lot more than materials at this point.
and then
Chair.
And then,
I'm sorry.
Board Member Wayland, we understand that gateway projects don't have to be full-on Hispanic architecture.
That was not my motion, no.
Okay.
Just reflect thank you, reflect the qualities of the history of Santa Barbara and as a place.
Okay. Do we have that written down, that addition to the motion? Whalen's addition to the motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we'll keep it in. I'll approve it.
And Chair Anderson and to Board Member 6, I'd like to qualify my earlier statement that you might want to include something in your motion for consideration for the applicant's benefit, that the ABR can't consider it whether it's a 3-story building or not, but if there's something that you support as a design, feel free to comment on that, but your consideration for whether or not it meets 2-story or 3-story is
So if I
not a
express it
discussion.
differently, I could
Yes,
say
you might be able
that-
to achieve that for the applicant's benefit.
add another comment that Unit F, Unit F's impact to the street appears to be a 2-story structure.
That's fine. If there's anything else to add, if you're supportive of that, I think that's.
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
We support the height of the Unit F in its relationship to the street.
Yeah, okay,
Thank
great.
you. I think
Who was our
that,
seconder?
that will be
Good with
clear.
Let's
part
lose
of the
let's
massing.
let's lose the word height and just stick with massing. I think that is.
Well, it's all kind of the same, no?
I want to be careful of I mean, sure, yeah, but I think it's massing is more appropriate than that. But sure.
Okay. I think the main point is that the board supports the massing of Unit F. Okay, great.
And also, I'm fine with Commissioner Whalen's addition
Okay.
as well.
Okay. All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
No.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes?
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member 6.
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
And
Oh,
then Chair
w-
Anderson, can you explain why? I think you're
Yes.
probably doing that, sorry.
Yeah, okay, so I just felt like, I feel like I could support the direction of the contemporary style if the materials could be better defined as compatible with the neighborhood. So, okay, let's move on to item 2. Thank you.
Chair Anderson, can we please take a 5-minute recess? City TV is going to reboot our system, so
Okay.
we're able to switch screens.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, there's some. Oh, got it. Okay. Reopen our ABR meeting for September 3rd, 2024. Moving on to item 2. Apologies that we are running behind, but we are on item 2. So if you're here for item 3, we're almost there. Okay, item 2 is 311 West Montecito Street. Proposal to demolish the existing 889 square foot short-term vacation rental and construct a new 3-unit apartment building and an attached ADU and with 12 bicycle parking spaces. The units are 1,143 square feet, 1,038 square feet, 991 square feet, and 565 square feet, respectively, for a total of 3,737 square feet. No vehicle parking is proposed. Under the AB 2097, project requires staff hearing officer approval of a coastal development permit. This is concept review. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project will require compliance with project compatibility findings and urban design guidelines. And I know we have the planner here.
Thank you. Pilar Plummer, Associate Planner with the city. So as you read into the record for the project, this is a proposal to demolish an existing short-term rental and to do 3 new residential units as well as 1 accessory dwelling unit. The project is in the overlay of AB 2097, so they're not proposing any vehicle parking for the project, but they are proposing more than the required amount of bicycle parking for the units. I do want to note they are meeting their required private open yard for all the units. So we're looking at for this review is just an initial concept design and feedback for the staff hearing officer to consider when it goes forward with the coastal development permit. So that's consistency with your findings, which you would be making later at project design approval, size, bulk, and scale, neighborhood compatibility. And also, I do want to note, so I'm not sure if the makeup of the board is as consistent with the last review, but there was a prior project proposed at this location for a hotel, so this will be replacing that one if it moves forward. Thank you. I'll hear if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, if you could introduce yourself, welcome back, and walk us through.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Roy. I am the agent for the property owner. So as was said, there was a prior hotel proposal on this site, and essentially the mass, bulk, and scale and design of that was rejiggered to be residential, so it's very similar to the prior proposal, if any of the board members recall that one. So I'll start out with neighborhood photos. So the project is 311 West Montecito Street. So it directly to the east is a market that has a two-story mass on it, which I believe are residential units. On the other side of that is a commercial development. On the other side of the intersection is a car wash. Directly across the street to the right is an apartment building. And similar to this project, this was previously approved as a hotel. That is no longer moving forward, and this building will remain as residential with some improvements being made to it. More directly across the street is a cottage health center. A little bit further down is a market. Directly to the west of the project is a two-story apartment building, and beyond that is a one-story apartment building. Going to site photos. So the existing site is developed with a essentially single-family residence that has historically been used for an office and then converted to a short-term rental. So that is proposed to be demolished. So essentially all site improvements are proposed to be removed. Those vegetation there, that is not on the property, so those would remain. Okey-doke, so I'll move on to the plans. So similarly to the original project, it is a two-story structure. It has one unit in the front, one unit in the back with a central patio space. That is the private yard for the front unit. You enter through this walkway over here. There is a bike storage room here that you'll see in further detail later on. The backflow preventers are behind the site wall and entry gate. And then there's an entry courtyard with a fountain element, stairs that go up to the two units above. There's a trash closet here and a trash closet there. In addition to this private yard, the front unit also has private yard in the side yard area, accessible from the bedrooms. The rear unit has its private patio in the rear here from the common space, and then the bedrooms also have access to a small patio over here. So in further detail, and there's a blow up later on, but I'll just kind of talk to it now. So the trash or the bike room is located here. There are two different bike racks proposed. There is a kind of higher density bike rack that's a double stack, and there are 8 racks there. Then there are 2 racks in here for another 4 additional spaces. As discussed, trash, unit, stairs. And then on the second floor, the accessory dwelling unit is located in the rear portion, and although it doesn't require private yard, it does have a substantial balcony associated with it. And then the private yard for this front unit is located kind of midway along the building here. There is a single parapet element here, and that's where the solar is intended to be on the roof plan. So going through the elevations, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. So if any of the members recall the original hotel project, pretty much all the elevations stayed relatively the same. The massing stretched a little bit towards the street and stretched a little bit towards the rear, but the kind of massing elements didn't really change with the exception of kind of more on the front yard area, particularly this element here. And that's a result of switching from hotel to residential. So setbacks changed where we didn't have a setback before. Now we do have a setback. So before there was an entry kind of small gable element that carried over here to the PL to create, I would say, a more substantial sense of entry, which we are no longer able to do because of setbacks. So the entry is a little bit more understated. And this massing element just got a little simpler, but everything else kind of stayed the same from that original proposal. And so this is the easterly elevation. The main change there was primarily kind of this opening in this area. The rest of the elevation relatively stayed the same. Same with the west elevation. There weren't really any substantial changes other than door additions from the hotel project. And likewise with the south elevation, the only real change is really to doors. And materials were simplified a little bit, but generally the overall design and intent stayed the same. There's a little bit further detail on the bike room. A little bit additional detail on the details, so that's the more dense rack. Landscape is similar to the prior project. Primary tree species are king palms, which are located kind of at the corners, the front facade. There's a big jacaranda street tree that's remaining, and a few king palms kind of in the side yard areas. And then there's one bird of paradise that kind of accents that little finial element a little bit. And then the remainder is just kind of a organic assortment with, I'd say, coastal plant palette. And then in the side yard and rear yard areas, it's more functional landscape. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Let's open public comment.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have a slip for this particular item. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment on this item, they may fill out a slip and bring it to me. And I see someone is filling one out to do so. And actually, if you'd like to just go ahead and come up to the podium, announce yourself, and then you can give me the slip afterward. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
My name's Tim Warner. Love the project, looks fantastic. I think your next item, number 3, could learn a lot from these drawings and size, bulk, and scale of this project. I probably have to leave before I get a chance to do public input at that, so that's why I'm stepping up, but this looks like a great project. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Okay, we will move on to further comment. At this time, I will check for virtual comment, and I do not at this time have any hands raised for virtual comment on this item, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this project. So at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
okay, thank you. Let's go to questions from the board. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions?
Can you go to the material page? What's the, in the site plan, what's the material of the hardscaping, the paving?
It
Oh, here we
is
go.
a paver. I don't have the manufacturer spec, but that's the color from their book, so it's kind of a mix of these browns and grays.
Yeah.
And it's a
Can you talk about that? Like what the inspiration was for some of that?
the inspiration was trying to somewhat replicate the kind of more historic brick paving materials that would be used with the Spanish building, but in a permeable material. These pavers are permeable themselves, so you don't get those larger gravel gaps, so it will look something a little bit closer to an actual brick.
Okay.
Board Member Soffin?
I'm sorry if I missed it. Do you have any plan for mechanical?
Yes. So the front kind of parapet element along the street here, that's high enough to screen 2 heat pumps that will be located there. And then the remaining 2 are in the rear corners.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Board Member Noon?
This is sort of broad and maybe for staff a little bit, or maybe for outside of this discussion, but I've noticed lately when we do these bike parking pieces and we try to load them up, are these, have you considered, are these for e-bikes? Those tend to be a lot bigger and more clustered, right?
Yeah, so this was actually discussion that came up during the plan review process. Essentially, the higher density stacked racks aren't really intended, mainly based on kind of the wheel size that you're getting into some of these electric bikes. So that's really the intent of the 4 standard bike spaces there, that those could accommodate a more substantial, heavier e-bike, and there would be outlets available for charging it there. So essentially, it's kind of being looked at as 4 e-bike charging spaces.
Got it. Okay. That's it.
Board Member Black?
No questions from me.
Vice Chair Whalen?
No questions.
No questions.
Me either. Comments? Let's start down there. Do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
I think it's a well-designed project. I think it looks good, so.
Down the line?
Yeah, I agree. Nothing, the only comment I would say is the mechanical units. I see that you've done a good job to, sort of screen and hide those. The 2 on the ground, if there was maybe a way to look for a way to get those off the ground and, away from public areas, would be just a thought. Seems like they would serve their purpose better in a quieter spot.
Comments? Board Member Black?
Just to say that, I liked it the last time I was here, and I think this is equally as nice.
Yeah. Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes, short of a Groundhog Day 2, a couple of suggestions about the bikes. I would make sure that front entry gate is like 4 feet, and with a metal frame around it, and your bike door too, that it be certainly wide, again, 48 inches with a metal frame. And that you perhaps look for a different location for your backflow devices, which are right there at the entryway, right? Perhaps they could be on the opposite side of the walkway, just a little more discreet and out of the way. I know there are all kinds of limitations, so just a consideration. Other than that, all of my previous comments from last time still stand.
Board Member Six?
Yeah, I have no problem with the project. I think it's a good one. I'm wondering if we can do anything to hasten this project along. We can't make an appealable decision at this point, but can we send it to
Consent?
consent?
Sure.
All right. Thanks.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I have nothing further to add, so let's make the motion. Go ahead. Okay, let's do a indefinite continuance to the consent review board.
Chair Anderson, if we can interrupt, it's actually going to the staff hearing officer before it returns to consent. So if you can do an indefinite continuance to the staff
Okay.
hearing officer.
To return, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do an indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer for the approval of the CDP with the applicant to come back to the consent review board at ABR after that with the following comments. Consider alternate locations for the backflow device. Provide entry gate details and consider alternate locations for the condensing units.
I'll second that. A question for staff. Does the staff hearing officer need anything from us as way as aesthetic comments?
Through the chair, board member, yes, if you can just note if the project is generally consistent with the project compatibility
Yes,
findings.
we can preliminary find consistency with the project compatibility findings.
I'll second that.
All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes?
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes?
Board Member Six, Board
Yes.
Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to item 3. This is a continued item for concept review.
We've almost caught up.
I know, we did good. This is 335 South Milpas Street. We have our team here.
So while we're waiting, I have to step down. I have a conflict with this one.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me read this in to the record. This is a revised project description. A proposal to demolish 3 of the 4 existing one-story commercial buildings. A 2-lot subdivision tentative map to create 2 new lots out of the existing lot. Retain the existing Tri-County Produce Market with a new 3,600 square foot addition, a new 1,100 square foot patio, and reconfiguration of the existing parking lot to include 41 automobile spaces, and construct a new 53 residential unit, 4-story mixed-use building with roof deck and ground-level parking garage containing 54 automobile parking spaces with 2 adjacent uncovered automobile spaces. The project is proposed under the state density bonus law and requests a concession for parking and waivers of variable density or bedroom count standards, height, and open yard. Project requires staff hearing officer approval of a CDP and tentative subdivision map and community development director approval of the density bonus application. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project will require compliance with the project compatibility findings and urban design guidelines. It was last reviewed November 27th, 2023 at a pre-application hearing. Are we waiting for more of your team?
Yes, hi. Unfortunately, I'm the landscape architect, and we could get started with landscape.
Well, I think we can, the planner's here, so we can have the planner start.
Chair,
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Oh.
I'm sorry, Chair Anderson, I was not here on the November meeting, but I watched the full video and reviewed the minutes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I just wanted to give you a few brief comments before I hand it over to the applicant team. The application for this project is currently incomplete. The applicant team is here today to get your feedback on the design of the current iteration, as this is a revised project description, so that they can work on your comments while they also work on our comments that were in the application completeness letter. I do want to point out that transportation planning had a number of comments on things like driveways, loading areas, parking, traffic, that will need to be resolved. However, we do want your comments today on the project as it is, in terms of the project compatibility findings that will need to be made for project design approval. So we have those up on the screen in case you want to, I'm sure you're well aware of them, but that's kind of how I want you to frame your review and comments today. So just putting that out there now, and maybe we can recess to wait for the, okay, maybe a 5-minute recess till they get here, if you like.
Chair Anderson, while we're in the intermission here, if the planner could talk more specifically about what some of those traffic and circulation issues were, so that we don't had to needlessly spend time on them.
Sure. So I'll summarize quickly. The city traffic engineer is not supportive of any driveways on Milpas Street, including that is existing, due to environmental concerns related to dangerous roadway design. That's because traffic using the driveways on Milpas affects the traffic flow and intersection capacity at the Milpas Street and Hootosh Street intersection. Additionally, with the current design and existing median, left turns are not allowed currently at the proposed driveway location, which is one of the existing, and alterations to that median are not supported. That intersection capacity can be mitigated by adding a second vehicle traffic lane on northbound Milpas Street, Street widening would require additional dedication of public right-of-way, modifications to both the railroad crossing and Highway 101 on off-ramp, which in turn would require approvals and permitting from Union Pacific Railroad, the California Public Utilities Commission, and Caltrans. And any driveway alterations or new driveways would also require review and approval by the Railroad and Public Utilities Commission. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The applicant team is, of course, aware of that and working on those things. So, but
Thank you. That was very helpful, but
Sure.
all of those comments refer to Milpas.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Correct.
Okay, is the whole team here?
We
Almost?
are.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Welcome. If you
Through
could,
that last item too fast.
yeah, it's because we vetted it for like years. No, okay. Well, welcome back. If you could introduce yourself, and you have 15 minutes.
All right, I'm Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard Planning. I'm the planner on this. Jeff Hornbuckle with the Cornell Collective, Project Architects.
Nicole Greer, landscape architect. I changed my last name, used to be Horn.
Great. Jeff, you want to get up the first slide of that? Okay, so this is what was before your board the last time. This was our 99-unit project, completely redeveloping the site and rebuilding basically a brand-new Tri-County produce within it. We got a lot of feedback on this. We heard from the neighbors. A lot of people, there were a lot of concerns about size, bulk, and scale with this, taking up basically the entire southern portion of the site. We went back and we were looking at different ways to address comments we received, and in the course of doing all that, we really just took a fresh look at how we were doing things out here, and we decided that there was a really significant value in sort of keeping the Tri-County structure in the front half of the site intact and enhancing that structure, kind of providing for the future of Tri-County more or less within its existing footprint, and most importantly, being able to have them stay in operation throughout the majority of this project. So the previous proposal would have required them to completely close down for a few years of construction and then reopen. And the way that we're going forward now that we'll present in a minute allows them to keep operating pretty much throughout the duration of construction. There'll be a short period where they'd have to shut down. And who knows, with creative staging, maybe they wouldn't even have to shut down, but it's far less impactful to them, and the gap in their business is going to be substantially reduced. So that was a big driver of what we're going to present to you as this new project. I want to touch briefly on this Milpas driveway issue. This is somewhere where we're in a disagreement with staff. They've got a position for certain reasons. We have other positions for other reasons, most notably that we currently have these two driveways. They're existing legal driveways, and we're talking about it with counsel, legal counsel, but it's debatable whether the city has the right to make us give up all access onto a public street frontage where we've had it for 50 years, 60 years. So anyway, we're working with staff on that. We'll hopefully come up with something, and if not, that's where we're going to be at an impasse, and we're going to have to ask the city decision makers what their priority is in their policies, whether it's housing or whether it's driveway entrances and exits. So anyway, we'll get there, but that's, other than site circulation, I guess it's sort of out of your purview, as is, there was a few comments from neighbors about parking and the numbers of parking spaces, which are also outside the board's purview, but just thought I'd mention that. And then the last thing I want to cover really quickly for the benefit of board members that may not have been here originally or not as familiar with housing projects in 2024 is this is an SB 330 project. I'm not going to give my whole speech on SB 330 because most of everybody knows it, but really basically the law in the state of California is that we're subject to objective design standards if they've been adopted, and they haven't in the city. And so we're basically subject to zoning requirements on this, and especially with respect to things like densities and we really can't do things with this project that reduce the numbers of units or the density. The only way that the city could deny a project like this is basically to find that it poses a threat to health, safety, and welfare based on an existing adopted standard. So just want that in the record, and just so people who haven't been here are understand the constraints that all of us are working under here. So I'll turn it over to the design team with that.
Great, thanks, Jarrett. So we've got, obviously, the plan set here. We also have the previous plan set, just for reference if we want to look at, the before. And then we also have just a few slides of kind of before and after comparison, just so you guys can see it a little easier. So obviously, as Jarrett mentioned, this is the previous project from Milpa Street looking to the north. And here it is, that same view with the revised project. You can see the existing Tri-County building there with the addition on the Calle Puerto Vallarta side and a new kind of enhanced deck along Milpas. So that concludes our presentation. No, I'm kidding. This is the previous site plan. So you can see in pink, or I guess salmon, this was the reconfigured Tri-County parking, and then we did have the residential lobby off of Calle Puerto Vallarta, and the entrance into the parking garage as well off of the east end of Calle Puerto Vallarta. And this is the revised site plan, which you can see preserves the existing Tri-County footprint, which is just shy of 6,000 square feet, and then to the south of it, along Calle Puerto Vallarta, is about a not quite 3,700 square foot addition, and then that enhanced deck along Milpa Street, which is up at the finished floor of Tri-County, so it has a better connection, and it also elevates it up above the street, so there's a little bit of a better you're not right at the level of all the cars, and you have kind of a nicer view out across the park and toward the ocean. The existing parking lot to the north of Tri-County essentially sort of remains the same, and then we are adding additional parking on the north side and what's now kind of just a dirt lot. And then this is that existing driveway on the north that we are eliminating. And then this is the driveway that Jarrett was just speaking about that we're maintaining. And then the new residential building to the east, similar kind of configuration, that, similar kind of residential lobby off of Calle Puerto Vallarta, and then the ingress and egress for automobiles essentially kind of in the same location that it was previously. And then we do have a egress between the two buildings, just to help with circulation. And so this is that previous view looking from the corner. So obviously we've significantly reduced the massing. The building, as you'll see, is much more of a traditional kind of Santa Barbara style, which we received quite a bit of feedback on previously. This is a view from Calle Puerto Vallarta looking toward the mountains and the updated. So again, you can see the Tri-County building in the foreground, that deck out in front with pretty significant landscaping between the back of sidewalk and that deck, which Nicole will speak further about in a few minutes. And then a view from Milpa Street at the train tracks, looking kind of toward the ocean, and the revised view here. So that enlarged parking along Milpas, and then obviously the building in a much reduced footprint. So that's it for those views. I'm going to switch to this guy just so we can run through the floor plans quickly. So again, the site plan. Let's see, can I make this full screen? Here we go. So site plan, as we looked at, so the podium level floor plan, very similar configuration to what we had before, kind of this triangular shape. All of the units are oriented around a central courtyard, and that residential lobby comes up here with elevators and stair. third, fourth floors stack essentially exactly with the units below. And then the roof plans, we've got quite a large amount of flat roof space for solar panels, and then some occupied deck area along the Calle Puerto Vallarta and Milpas sides of the building, which Nicole will speak to further. I've got straight on building elevations, which we can come back to if there are questions. These are those same views that we looked at previously. A couple of additional views. This is the view from the 101 southbound entrance on-ramp. And then that same view from Milpas and the train tracks. And then finally some, just a few additional views. So closer up to the building at the corner of Milpas and Calle Puerto Vallarta. This is a sort of mid-block on Calle PV, looking at the residential building. And then at the east end of Calle Puerto Vallarta, looking at the vehicular entrance, this is the residential lobby and stair tower. And then another kind of view from the train tracks along Milpas, just showing how much further the building is set back. And then finally the view kind of along the train tracks on the north side of the building. So I think with that, we'll turn it over to, I'm going to go, let's see, where?
It's in the supplemental
Oh,
set with the
got
landscape.
it. Is it this guy? Flip to the landscape plan. Oh, there we go. Do you want full screen? Sure. Go.
Thank you. So this is just the same tree disposition plan, basically, that we had from before. We haven't changed any of the removals. And then here's the, can I just do this? No, I can't do that there. This is the first floor plan. So I just wanted to kind of talk about some of these things and then I can zoom in. But we have pavers up here shown in the sort of middle of the top. This is the permeable paver that we're proposing for this like court entrance here off of Calle Puerto Vallarta. It's the Montecito blend color, so tans. And then this paver here, we're not going to use this blue color. We're using these colors here, this suede and kind of a linen color, and then the darker color here. That's going to be on the courtyard on the second floor. So we'll go to that page next, but the images are here. And then on the ground floor, we have wood deck. So this whole elevated deck off of the commercial building and the Tri-County, that would be wood, natural wood, ipe, hardwood. And then on the third floor, we have wood deck proposed as well. That would be on pedestal. And then some of these images, we have sandstone walls shown here, which would, lift up this building or the deck here. And we have raised planters in front of the deck. And then we're proposing an espalier, a fruit tree espalier, in this kind of narrow planter here, kind of reminiscent of productive landscapes and homage to Tri-County produce. And then just kind of other character planting images. So I'm going to try to zoom in here slowly. So this is that wood deck. We've got ramp coming up, stairs coming up, and then this whole area here is actually existing like outdoor display area, so that would remain the same, and then dining and kind of lounge seating right here. These are the raised planters I talked about. Bike parking, and then the espalier trained onto the building here. And kind of the most obvious difference is all of the parking. So we've got surface parking, which is great because we get a lot more trees and planting, and we have a bigger buffer here, planted buffer between the parking and the railroad. We're showing sycamore trees in orange, or salmon-esque. And then we have Italian cypress. So we have Italian cypress kind of integrated here, and you could see them in the renderings because we're putting them here on the building in between the green screens. I mean, not on the building, but we've set the building back so we can have these sort of columnar trees that are very Mediterranean, very Santa Barbara. And it's one thing we've heard over and over from your board to try to get more green on this facade. And then again, Italian cypress here and the sycamore on the corner to kind of anchor it. And then in the street frontage, that's pretty much the same. These are the Culverturia, I think, trees, because we have an existing one here. And then on Milpas, we have existing Melaleucas, so we're just going to add 2 more of the same. And we'll have to go to Street Tree Advisory Committee and Parks and get all of that approved. And then I'm going to go to
You have
this
about 1 minute.
second floor. Thank you. It's not going down. So the second floor on the right, and then the new roof deck on the left. And then some images up here, character images of what we're proposing. Because it's relatively a simple concept here in the courtyard. It's much smaller the courtyard than we had before. It's raised planters, seating. This is those pavers in the middle I was talking about earlier. And then we have a couple of water features shown in blue. And then on the roof deck, I'll spend the time there. We have amenities for residents. So we have this barbecue area, fireplace, kind of lounge seating area. The idea is maybe we could have like a table or a TV here above the bar, and water feature, and then different sort of lounge seating here on the Milpas side. And on the Calle Puerto Vallarta side, this would be like a passive, somewhat active recreation space, flexible. You could lay out yoga mats, you could have tables and chairs, and then a bocce court. And again, this is all for residents. And that wraps it up.
Do you need more time?
Yeah,
You guys?
no, nobody wants to see the civil drawings.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We will open public comment for item number 3. As a reminder, we have no purview over the amount of parking, over anything that has to do with the zoning code besides the aesthetics and mass bulk and scale of the project. So.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. And at this time, Mr. Marcano, could you please come up to speak? You will have 2 minutes. Still here? No? Okay, our next. Marcana? Okay. You're next, so please come up and turn on your mic. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
I can speak fast. Thank you for sending me the flyer. I appreciate that. I'm the only one in my building who was able to come today. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to very quickly say I've been living in this neighborhood for 34 years. I intend to stay until the building falls apart around me. I have 2 questions. One is, will there be any pets allowed in the building? Have you even thought that far? The reason I mention it is that we have tons of pets in the neighborhood, all coming past my building and visiting, quote unquote, on our little tiny grassy sidewalk. Has anybody thought that far? Because that could be an issue.
We'll have them answer.
Number 2, will there be an exit on Calle Puerto Vallarta? It so happened that last Sunday I came off Orilla del Mar trying to go to Tri-County in that direction, and I could not even get into Calle Vallarta because the soccer games that were playing on Sunday, they were leaving and exiting and all coming down Calle Puerto Vallarta to turn onto either Milpas or Cabrillo, if you understand the layout. And living there and seeing that and sitting in my car thinking, wow, and they're going to put a building there? Can the people even leave their apartments to get onto the street? It was impassable. And of course, the street light at the train station was technically, a lot of times it's on red, so the cars are backed up anyway. And I thought, this is impossible already as it is. My street is so narrow that when with two cars parked, two on both sides, and two cars trying to pass, already you have to often back up and let someone try to squeeze in. It's already so horrendously, even dangerous at times. And I just want you to really be aware of that, the consequences, the extra noise, the pollution, the density. It is so difficult already living there. And it has changed so drastically, as you can imagine, in the last 34 years, and
Pardon the
not
interruption.
necessarily
There's no
for the
time
better.
remaining,
Thank you.
however. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your help. I do love coming here.
Thank
We'll
you.
come back and haunt you all. Bye.
Looking forward.
All right, our next speaker is Mr. Robert Laskoff. If you could approach the podium, you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I've been living at 402 Aria Del Mar since 1997, and the driveway for our apartments, 6 of the 7 apartments, faces Puerto Vallarta. So in order for us to get out, there's an overhead garage door, we have to go onto Puerto Vallarta. Oftentimes there are trailer trucks delivering to Tri-County, and that narrows the street down really badly. And so traffic coming up Puerto Vallarta and down Puerto Vallarta, you kind of play the courtesy game. Okay, you can come and then I'll go down. But the way this is designed, it appears that the new storage building will be right on the corner. So you won't be able to see from Puerto Vallarta onto Milpa Street for traffic coming southerly and onto Puerto Vallarta. And as the previous speaker indicated, on Sundays when there are soccer games and the zoo has a function, Puerto Vallarta is really backed up. Because of the congested street configuration, and because there's only going to be 2 means of egress and ingress to this project, I wonder how much additional traffic this is going to create. And secondly, nobody's told me yet, but I think the fire department has to weigh in. This is just a disaster waiting to happen, because the way the project is designed, fire trucks are not going to be able to get in there. And then the new building, if the trailer trucks are going to continue to sit on Puerto Vallarta to load and unload, it's going to be an impossible situation.
Pardon the interruption. There's no time remaining. If the chair wishes or allows you to proceed, you can.
Yeah, maybe if you can just wrap it up and focus on the aesthetics of the proposed.
The aesthetics of the building are troubling. I don't see any need to exceed the height requirement. It's a real bulky kind of a building with all of that parking space around it. They say there's going to be a roof deck. I don't know what that means. And the entranceway for people to go in and out, I don't know what that's going to do to increase traffic or allow people to find the address, because it's going to be a Milpa Street number, and people are going to have to go around to Puerto Vallarta.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we will have Carolyn Howell. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please approach the podium.
Hello, I'm Caroline Howell. We've been the owners of 415 Aria Del Mar for 14 years. It's one of the old original 1920s houses, one of the last ones on the block. And one of the things I noticed is that one of the goals of the city is to keep this within the compatibility of the neighborhood, and I don't understand how a 4-story building with a roof deck is in any way compatible with our neighborhood. I completely agree with our neighbors that there is no way that if you're going to have the entrance to this, which is the entrance to the apartment building, is really going to be at where our street, Aria Del Mar, dead ends into Puerto Vallarta. if drivers going to load their stuff? How are Ubers going to pick people up? That's just a nightmare of a street. There's so many blind spots. I don't know what the traffic area, what the accident rate is there, but I know it's a really dangerous area, and it's a cut-through street. And I know we're not really supposed to consider parking, but all the hotels and restaurants already park on all over the neighborhood. There is nowhere for visitors, and I know 54 parking places is not enough for 54 units. That's ridiculous. So I just think the scale is still way too large for compatibility with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stephanie Diaz, please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Diaz, and I live in the residential neighborhood just south of the project site. I'm on Corona Del Mar, which is one street over from Aria Del Mar that's been talked about. And I did come with some pretty much the same type comments about our concerns about Calle Puerto Vallarta. And at Corona Del Mar, it's a double-blind corner. You have to pull all the way out across the eastbound street in order to see what's going on, and then you have cars slamming on their brakes. But what I was here to ask is for the ABR or the applicant to request to the city that they put a stop sign in there. If there was a stop sign, it would slow all the people who are speeding. They use that as a cut-through. And I put in a request 3 times in writing to Public Works, and I've never heard back. So that's one request I have. Second, I am representing my neighbors, and they do want to say that, we all want to say that we are so glad to see Tri-County back on the proposal. I mean, it is our walk-to grocery store, and I'm even glad to see it. It's getting bigger. There's a feeling that the size, bulk, and scale is too much for the neighborhood, and concerns about loss of mountain views. We do think it's significantly better than what was proposed before. I had one last thought. And this is probably not architectural review, but I'm going to really request that you try to provide some units that are senior or handicap available, maybe walk-in showers or walk-in tubs, hand railings and such, because we have a good senior population that would like to stay in Santa Barbara and have some safe housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tim Warner.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I am a proponent of this property being developed. I think it's about time to see it upgraded, and we need the housing. My support also for the applicant to be able to keep the Milpas egress for the parking is huge. I think all the neighbors have expressed the concern about traffic on Calle Puerto Vallarta. It's a disaster. I would like to see some stipulations that the applicant provides the correct loading and unloading for all truck trailers that are delivering produce or supplies to Tri-County, because right now they double park and they block the street. I'm surprised somebody hasn't got hit and killed there. I guess it's legal non-conforming because it's been there so long, but that situation needs to be fixed. The traffic needs to be addressed. I don't know if a traffic study has been performed yet, but Calle Puerto Vallarta, sometimes it's okay, but if there's a zoo event, baseball games, soccer games, it's really dangerous. Size, bulk, and scale, I'd rather they drop down to 2 and 3 stories and build apartments over the existing parking lot for Tri-County and meet the scale of the neighborhood. The 53 units is adequate if they would do that and drop the size, bulk, and scale and make it conforming to the neighborhood. I think it could be a great project, but the latest design by the architect's a failure to keep the bulk and scale low and, conforming to the neighborhood. There's an alleyway, it looks like. Is that two-way alleyway that goes from the parking lot to Calle Puerto Vallarta, the presentation by the architect really didn't address things. It didn't say height. It didn't cover a lot of, things that are important to the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our in-person public comment. We will now move on to virtual comment, and I do have a hand raised for virtual comment. Mr. Stephen Johnson, you will be given 2 minutes to speak. Mr. Johnson?
Again. Okay, I think I unmuted this time.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I know you don't much want to hear about parking, but I'm going to approach it from a slightly different angle. I like to see this project with no parking. Similar to many, many projects in the city that are close to transit centers, this project is not that far away from a transit center. Let me describe some benefits of no parking. You could reduce the size, bulk, and scale. You could greatly eliminate the concern that neighbors have about excess traffic on CPV. And there's a way to legally make this happen. You can, the developer can ask for a concession. It's already asked for concession. Using state bonus density, it could ask for a larger concession for no parking, or it can ask for a modification. The Housing Authority has on numerous occasions got projects obtained with no parking using the modification process. That gives you a less massive project, much less impact on the neighborhood, and it's going to make the units more affordable. And I should also mention AB 1287. I don't think this should be a 53-unit project. I think it should be a 100-unit project, where average unit size goes down by about half. That will be much more affordable, much better for the city, and the developer gets about the same income. I've got the spreadsheet to demonstrate that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I do not have any further comment on virtually, and we will move on to what was submitted written, and that we did receive a letter from Tom Christensen and Ray Fazenden. And at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, thank you. We will close public comment. And although we cannot comment on the amount of parking, we can comment on the livability of the site layout. So we can discuss site circulation. So maybe before we go into questions, you could run us through how someone enters and exits the site, talk about the alleyway, talk about how per planning, you're probably gonna have to do a traffic study, you're gonna have to do environmental review. So some of that stuff's out of our purview, but will be part of the project.
I can address those questions while he's looking up, specifically as to the environmental review. We have requested to do an environmental impact report on this project. The actual CEQA document, California Environmental Quality Act, for people who aren't acronym lovers like I am, is a negative declaration because the city staff, well, and us, we didn't anticipate any impacts rising to the level of a class 1, which is significant residual after mitigation. We do have the option to just opt for an EIR, and for various reasons, we've asked the city to prepare one of those, and all of the traffic and circulation issues will be addressed as part of that. We already have a parking study that's done, but under the EIR, they're also going to look at things like the site distances and everything else like that. So that, along with every other potential environmental issue of this project, including visual impacts, everything else, is all going to get addressed in detail as part of that EIR. And there's a public review and comment period for that document specifically to impacts. And then it'll be followed by the staff hearing officer when they review this project. Will also be making findings to accept that EIR when it's all finished and when public comments about the EIR have all been addressed and it's been revised. And we love our processes here in California. That's one of my favorites.
And the fire department will also review this, just so.
Yes. So quickly, site circulation, I tried to quickly touch on this during the presentation, but I may not have explained that well enough. So we have the existing driveway on Milpa Street for the commercial parking is to remain. So that is the entrance and an exit for the commercial parking, which is being extended to the north, this is a dead end parking configuration here, as we are eliminating that northern driveway on Milpas. And then we do have an exit only out onto Calle Puerto Vallarta. So that's, definitely going to help with the circulation and the loading component, which, we understand has some issues in the current configuration. And then in terms of the residential building, the vehicular entrance and egress is at the east end of Calle Puerto Vallarta here. And then we have the pedestrian entrance, as I mentioned previously here, as well as the second egress stair at this corner of the site here. So hopefully
Great.
that answers all the questions there.
Thank you.
Along the lines of the circulation, while you have this up, there was the comment about how would people find this? It's a Milpas address, and how will they ever know it's around here? It's the fire department's going to assign a Calle Puerto Vallarta address to the residential structure on here, almost certainly. And then, we've got the entrance evident over there. The people that are parking in this garage are the residents there, so I expect they're going to know how to get into and out of their own garage. And then in terms of Ubers picking people up, they just park on the street frontage when they come pick you up. There doesn't have to be a special Uber entrance into every project for Uber to be able to work. So we're not super concerned about that. And then, of course, Tri-County is probably just going to retain its existing address. And then things like the site distance around these corners and all, again, that'll be addressed in the EIR, but there's plenty of site distance.
Okay, thank you. We will go to questions from the board. Board Member 6.
I think I boiled it down to one question. Is there any technical reason for not developing podium units above the surface parking on the produce side of the split? Besides economics.
Board Member 6, it's partially economics. It's also, we didn't really go into it because it's not so much architectural here, but you can see those red dotted lines on here. We are going to be splitting this parcel so that all of the residential is on one site and all of the commercial is on the other site. And I guess technically it's economics, but it has to do everything with the ability to finance this version of this project. So it may not matter to the board, but it matters as to whether or not we're ever really going to have a project here. Because like all of these housing projects you see in Santa Barbara, you can't build it if you can't pay for it. So
Right.
That's why.
Okay. And the subsequent question, has there been any discussion about, with the city, about making pullouts or drop-offs in lieu of the continuous parkway along Puerto Vallarta?
Board Member 6, actually, no, we haven't brought that up, and we'd consider it. That's going to be up to transportation if we can do that.
Okay, it's non-architectural, but it might alleviate some of the concerns. That's my questions.
Vice Chair Whalen?
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll get right into some specifics. In your previous plan, there was access from the bike room directly into the lobby. That doesn't appear on this plan. Was there a reason for that, or can you study that?
Yes, I think that was the intent. We just
Sure. Didn't quite happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's
yeah.
make sure
You can see we absolutely have the ability.
there's an alignment
so
there.
That would definitely
Very
happen.
good.
Yes.
You might consider a curb cut so that one could directly come from Orilla Del Mar into the bike room. And this is going to relate to my next comment, how very often the bike system gets merged with the pedestrian circulation rather than vehicular. such as at the produce store, you can see that that's the case. So I would encourage you to try to reverse that bikes are part of vehicular circulation, and not encourage them to be on the sidewalks. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I merged that, didn't I? Thank you. Let's see, a question on your image number 8. What are the materials on the second and third floor balconies? They appear, are they those green screens?
Are you talking, when you say image number 8, are you?
You're 12 of 22, go back down to 8.
Oh, sheet number 8?
Sheet.
Gotcha.
I hesitate to call it a sheet because 8 on, let's see, 2 and 3, what are, is it the green screen just projected up to be the balcony of the
Are
second
you
floor?
talking about like this?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So there would be, essentially a railing behind, and the green screen would extend up so that it, from the exterior, it appears to be the guardrail.
All right, then. You didn't spend much time talking about the entry to Tri-County Produce. It seems to be buried now in new patio areas. Can you talk a bit about that and the additional storage space that's on the Calle PV?
Yeah, so this is that existing kind of covered entrance to the market. So the new deck, extends basically the full width of the building with the addition along the Puerto Vallarta side of the building.
And that patio has a cover and a railing.
Yes.
It was hard to see in your illustrations, but it looks like.
Yeah, I'll flip to a rendering after this, but yes, it has a guardrail and kind of more of a trellis over it to provide some shade.
So
then a stair and a ramp that get you up.
Will that the Trico store is now open from the street? Does that remain, or does that get closed off?
That would essentially remain.
All right. And then a larger question, if you want to zoom out, did you study an alignment with the Orilla Del Mar and Cayo PV to centralize traffic that is going in and out in one intersection?
That's sort of where we're at here. So that there's only so far we can go and still be on our property, and that's kind of, we've pushed it all the way down there for that reason. That's where all the residential traffic comes in and out, is at the far end of the property. That's as close as we can get to an alignment.
Okay. And then my last question regards the loading dock in the proposed new storage area. See?
This is a little difficult to see, but I was just trying to show that, this is essentially where
That's as far as you could get.
We're trying to, essentially make this alignment, right? Sorry, that's a little.
And it wasn't possible to align it with, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the other street to the southwest of that one. Wasn't possible to make that into an intersection so that one entered the garage.
Didn't
study it.
It's possible. It's just
Didn't study
much
that.
less
All right.
efficient.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely studied it, yeah, but it's just in terms of the efficiency of the parking layout, it's not as efficient of a layout, unfortunately.
All right. And keeping with questions, if you can go back to your site plan, what is it didn't look like the loading dock was very deep. What is a proper loading dock depth?
I don't know, but that's definitely something that needs to be updated, because this doesn't provide the necessary depth.
Oh, right.
As we've shown, so our intent is to, revise that. So
Very
that
good.
It works.
I'm keeping, those are all my questions.
Board Member Black?
No questions at this time.
Board Member Soffren?
No questions.
Board Member Anderson?
What's the height to the second floor?
The height to the second floor. Is 15, well, let's see. Yeah, I mean, the site slopes, so, at the residential lobby, it is 12 feet, but at the, west end, it's about 14 feet, just based on the slope of the site.
What's driving the height? It seems like it's tall on the ground level.
I mean, it mostly has to do with the parking, having the, proper clearance within the parking garage for structure, mechanical, ADA, clearances, et cetera.
Well, the other thing, again, the site is sloping down, so we're around 12 at the low side, which is giving us a clearance, and then we have a floor above that. So the floor is one level, and the site goes below it, and that's what's giving us the height at the other end, versus alternatively, you'd have to find somewhere to break the entire floors between inside the building, somewhere to drop the whole building down partially. So that's another thing that's driving that 2 feet there.
To step the slab, yeah. I mean, can I see the section of that?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
We'd show it to you if we could.
yeah.
Kick something?
I'll pull them up on this now.
Well, I guess I can just ask, why don't you want to step the slab? I mean, I've worked on many multifamily developer projects where they step the slab, and it's not unusual to do that.
Again, I mean, it's possible. It poses, some accessibility issues. It's a huge cost implication. So.
We choose not to. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to not do it, and I understand it might reduce part of the building by 2 feet over, how tall is our building? 45 feet, 48 feet?
It's like 54.
Yeah, I mean, it is 50 foot 6 inches.
Yeah, we just, the huge costs and all of the other issues it brings up, we just don't.
51 and a half.
We don't feel like that 2 foot reduction on half of the structure is a meaningful trade-off, based on everything else it would do adversely to the feasibility of this project.
In terms of the street frontage, how do you propose to activate all that blank wall? In terms of programmatically and walking by that, that's a lot of 14-foot solid wall on ground level.
So you can see we've got the residential lobby here, the bike room, which we've sort of designed as a little storefront with a tile sill detail, and then a green screen at this portion where the building steps back, and we've got residential patios, and then some detailing at this west end of the building at the pedestrian level.
How long is that green screen?
I don't think I can dimension this. It's probably...
It looks like it's probably longer than 50 feet, because I can see
Yeah,
45 feet.
55 feet, yeah.
It's how tall? How tall is it off the side?
It's like 19 feet or so, like 19 feet.
So you got 20 by 50 plus feet of green screen on your street level?
Yeah, and this doesn't show the landscaping either. We've got the full city parkway width and landscaping and stuff in front of that. I mean, we're sort of limited on what we can do there. We have parking behind it. So You know, we could make all sorts of openings in there and people could see cars in our parking lot, or we could have a green screen. So we are opting for the green screen, and then, you know, getting some landscaping stuff in the parkway that's opposite our building so that we have, you know, trees and things, and we have a nice corridor for people to go through. So that's how we handled that.
Why can't you program the ground level?
Because we need parking on the ground level, and it's easier to put it there than on the second or third or fourth stories.
Can you flip to the perspectives you were showing in the back of your set? Yeah, and then zoom in on the bottom left one here. That's the green screen elevation we just looked at. A little bit more, there we go. Because I want to see the scale of the people walking by. So I guess I'm just curious, you know, how that's going to feel to walk by, you know, in terms of the experience of the street. Maybe you could talk about that, or we could just move to comments, I guess.
Well, I have a few questions, but if you want to address that.
Sure, yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we feel like the green screen solution is, you know, it's a valid solution. It provides, obviously, landscaping, texture. It breaks up the, you know, the facade of the street frontage, and we think it's a, you know, a viable solution here.
Okay. Do you have
The other thing I will mention is it's a, we're proposing this as an open parking garage, so naturally ventilated. So we've got requirements for openings on all sides of the buildings. And so, as Jared said, rather than, you know, looking directly into the parking garage, our thought was to create this green screen, which, you know, helps to screen that a bit.
Yeah, there's other situations that are similar to this, like down on Lower State Street, very similar, where people have their whole first level is, I forget which hotel it is. It's like it's the one that's right next to Rusty's. There's my geography for you. I was a geography major. Are you impressed? Anyway, what they have there is they've got basically stucco wall with some really large cutouts in it and some interesting ironwork. And it's an open garage, and you can see through to the cars, and there's variation and all because of that ironwork. That's one way to handle it. But we like this green screen. It's novel. You don't see it a whole lot, and it's green. And we've had a lot of direction to get as much greenery as we can here in a really narrow space. This works.
Is there opportunity to step the green screen back so you have a couple layers and it breaks up and maybe change the
Sure. Yeah, I
okay,
think
so maybe we
there's
could
definitely
study
an
that.
opportunity to, study it further. Absolutely.
We could also study just the planting design so that it has more of a pattern. It's not just one solid thing like you see here.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Are you done with your question? Okay. Can we just look at, do you have the rooftop deck in a section? Can we see, like this corner, that middle rendering, in the rooftop plan, it looks like the deck is like right up against the edge, and I was just curious on a section and what,
I don't know that we capture that in sections specifically.
Okay.
You can kinda see it on that one
it's
to the
It's
left.
this beyond, right?
So is it 42-inch parapet?
The
Or is it-
guardrail?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
guardrail
yeah,
type?
yeah.
If we go to the roof plan, like we can see where the setbacks of that deck are.
Yeah, I was gonna go to the landscape plan.
Or yeah, that's the one.
Whoops. Yeah, so currently it is shown, yes, essentially right up against the parapet guardrail. But I'm sure we could study, pulling that back slightly, sort of similar to how we've done in other locations.
Yeah. Okay, and then just real quick, can you just run through your plate heights above the podium?
Sure.
And did they change from before, or did they stay the same?
I think that they've stayed essentially the same. I'd have to
So,
double check.
like
but,
11?
So we've got 11 feet floor to floor on the floors above.
Are you shooting for a 9-foot ceiling?
Yes, yeah, minimum. That should give us a little bit more than 9 feet is what we're hoping.
Okay.
19 and some change, or 9 and some change.
Okay. And then the entry patio for Tri-County, how high above the ground is that next to the
That
sidewalk?
is, let's see. Yeah.
5 or 6 steps or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from recollection of going to Tri-County, that their base of their store is like maybe 4 feet and change above grade, and maybe it's even a little higher. But yeah, this would come out at the same height, and then like if you look in the renderings, like it's a little misleading. It looks kind of like a 6-foot wood fence around a patio, but the deck's actually up like halfway through that. So people sitting around and standing on that patio, you'd see the people there. They're not like, walled off by a fence.
So at the corner, it looks like it's not quite 3.5 feet
Okay.
above the, the sidewalk at the corner.
Okay. Okay. Any follow-up questions from the board?
I'm still trying to understand why the screen is as tall as it is. I mean, you just got one level of parking behind it?
But then it goes up to the height of the guardrail for the patios of the residential units. So if I go back to that rendering.
And that's just a trick to,
It's just a design decision. It isn't, there's not a requirement for it. That's just what we did.
So you can see we've got, the building steps back and we've got residential patios at this podium level. So that green screen is just going up to the height of that guardrail at those patios.
And the green screen is immediately at the back of the sidewalk? There's no...
No, there's a
Is there a
little
gap?
bit, there's a little bit of a gap. Yeah.
A little planting area of
Yeah,
some sort.
exactly.
And that
yeah.
carries across? at least
Yes,
in the
yeah. And then, you can see obviously it steps back at the residential lobby entrance, right? And it kind of jogs in and out along that frontage.
You can see the floor here.
Yeah. So this, floor of this Juliet balcony, right? If you project that across is the floor line.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I'm pretty sure I remember this project, and I think, did we pull the minutes up from when we last saw it in November? Because I was just kind of curious. It felt like I'm recalling that we brought up the plate heights, and there was concern about you want to go so tall, and I understand that you want to have volume in the apartments, and it's really nice to have that high ceiling, and I get that. It makes a lot of sense. But just if it was asked by the board previously for you to reevaluate those plate heights, and I just don't know if we have a clear answer on that.
I do have the minutes from the November 27th hearing pulled up, and all the board member comments were listed individually, but I can scroll through.
I thought you were here for concept. Did we not?
Yeah, it is concept.
But last time was not concept? It was
We saw it once.
Looks like there was a comment from board member Anderson
same person.
about the plate heights.
Still concerned.
And the plate.
Okay. Well, we didn't make a motion last time, it seems like, so it wasn't like a,
Comments only.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this often. Yeah.
That's true. Do we
Yeah.
have the plans from the old set, right?
It doesn't look like they're here, unfortunately.
But, so what Mr. Chua just said and reminded us is before we had commercial space on the ground floor that was also part of the parking, and that was pushing up the lowest plate height. We don't have that issue anymore in he thinks we may have reduced that one, and we could know for sure if we had that plan set here, but.
Okay. Okay, questions? Let's go to comments. All right, Board Member 6, comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. I'm just thrilled that you have saved the iconic mass and storefront of the produce company. It very smart, and I think it greatly reduces, when you look at the overall project, it greatly reduces the mass of the project. You know, it's understandable that because you've reduced, you know, you've compacted the residential sites to radically smaller than you had before. I understand that the housing portion needs to be much more dense. It's disappointing that we worked hard and we were getting happy with some of the step backs on the south building, but I do understand the trade-off there, and the trade-off is that, you know, we've gotten a much smaller building overall. But, you know, the result is and with respect to the architect, I think this looks like a first pass, and I'm sure that there are a lot more finessing to do here with this talented architect to reduce the apparent mass and bulk and scale of this project, even though it's all 4 stories now around the housing. So I think that one of the things that will help a lot is to work on the roof forms. And I know that I understand that on the podium level you can't take down your plate heights, but given this triangular configuration, I would hope that there would be on the roof plate heights, especially in corners that are away from the main structural lateral system, that there could be opportunities to drop some of the oblique corners of the roof plate heights down significantly to vaulted ceilings or whatever. So I think that that would be one thing that could happen. And I think that I would suggest that that you look at steeper roof pitches at that roof, especially in the view from the west and from the freeway. And what I'm thinking is that you've got, and again, I don't know, I don't think that you've had a chance to articulate this much, but the grandness and the plainness of that roof deck could be manipulated to lose some of it and have some of those roofs climb up in a steeper pitch, climb up to establish more form and the appearance of, you know, a more articulated, less boxy project. I don't think you have to have banister railing heights all around the full perimeter of the project, of that whole roof deck. I think that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity there. And even when you have, like you desire that south west corner where the trellis is, even that could, you could start to articulate the balustrade, so you have openings and railings or somehow to relieve that boxiness again. And again, for instance, on the northwest, I think there's no roof there. So again, no roof deck. So I think that's a very good opportunity to introduce a roof form that would significantly off-balance the blockiness of that west elevation. And yeah, so I think that your elevation from the freeway, the north elevation, the railroad track elevation, is looking very nice, and I like the language of the voids and the balconies and so forth. I'm just wondering, I could see that being successful in your south elevation. Could we go to the south elevation where there's the middle section of the south elevation? I think that language, yes, that language right there, would not linear balconies of some sort help that a lot better? You see what I'm saying? I'm questioning, let's talk about the green screen. I understand what you're trying to do with the green screen as high as it is in order to provide some softness rather than hardness, to get that lower floor as high so the next 3 stories don't look so high. So I get it. But I think that, and again, because I think you're at an early pass at this, I would think that you could do a lot of opportunities to articulate that green screen in a way that, you show some of the openings or you show some of the raw wall instead of seeing the cars. There's some manipulation there on all those. I think it's a very early pass, and you've, understandably, to get it under our review here and make progress, you've done that. I think that there's a lot of articulation that's possible there. I question on the west elevation, I question the solid balcony at the third level. I think that if that was more translucent or, the railing above it like that, it would separate those two masses more distinctly. And especially if, as I suggested, you had a roof form or you made the two flanking masses different from each other, it would be a lot more interesting and less boxy. If we could, the market patio, I was kind of turned off by here on the elevation, it looks like you're doing some, those are shade things. Yes, okay. Well, on a rendering anyway, it looked very contemporary. And I would think that you could take the opportunity to I don't know what you would call the vernacular of the original market is, but it seems that you could play with that to bring it more in kind of that flavor and extend that lovely, humble architecture that's there. And then I have a minor thing on the interior interior courtyard that I would think it'd be important to have some kind of weatherproof extension over all the entry doors. Not a full roof, because that would cut out, you know, your light down into the deep, but maybe there's just a little vertical lip, 2 or 3 feet out from each of the doors, because that's very harsh right now.
If I may, we have exterior exit balcony that provides access to the unit, so that provides cover for.
I'm talking about the upper floor, the
very
last
top floor.
floor.
Oh,
The last
understood.
floor is
Yes.
completely
Yeah,
weathered
absolutely.
and severe,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
those entries are hurting right now. So those are my comments.
Vice
But I
Chair.
appreciate, you know, the direction it's going, and are thrilled that you're keeping the iconic market.
Thank you. Vice Chair Whalen?
Mr. Six and I are in complete accord on almost everything. No, everything. I'll put a fine point on a couple of those. But first, compliments to saving the Trico building. I am a little disappointed that it's now buried. You know, it's a familiar icon. And whatever you could do to express the original building more carefully, for one, the additional storage building could be set back, offset, rather than now it's in the same plane. But whatever you can do to preserve that iconic opening and unusual building experience where the blurring of the indoors and the outdoors, you're there. And in a sense, I'm not sure I'm in accord with all the modern renderings of the railings and the metallic. There again, as Mr. Six was expressing, perhaps it's more of an original industrial illustration rather than modern, contemporary. But I do support your idea to split the lot and preserve that building as much as possible in its rendering. Let's see, as to Mr. Six's comments on the reducing the blockiness, I totally support that. Mr. Heirenbuckle, if you go to one of your renderings, the west-facing corners might, rather than just being cut off at a 45 degree, that they be expressed as the far east end of the building expresses an angle where the parking structure is. So perhaps a notching out and just more carefully rendering them. See, as that does, I'm thinking that that same sort of notching out on the corner, as Mr. Six was saying, to reduce the blockiness and give it some identity. And on both this and the Calle Puerto Vallarta, the length of those balcony railings, you might break those up a little more with a variation. And in general, I think that the compatibility with the neighborhood on Calle Puerto Vallarta could use some modulation in that. It would be helpful in your future presentations to see the locations of the buildings across the street, include those in your site diagram so that we may better assess. But I could live with the end blocks on the building if the middle were more reduced in character, in size, bulk, and scale to meet more of the neighborhood, because as you can easily see, 4 stories right on the street is a bit incompatible with the neighborhood. So breaking up that linearity of those balcony lengths. Let's see. Oh, to the landscape. I seriously doubt the viability of that triangular courtyard on the second floor. It just seems to me that it's going to be very dark, and that 3 stories of building is going to block any southern exposure of sunlight down in there. I'm wondering if you couldn't manipulate the apartments in ways that would build that into a significant courtyard. Rather, it seems to me now to just be a leftover space that that's a rather nice landscape plan, but the volumetric shape of this space seems to me to have a big problem with really having some life and livability to it. And then, Nicole, you talked about the Italian cypress going in on that north side. And there was one drawing that indicated little notches out. Well, a mature 40-year-old Italian cypress can be like 6-8 feet across, very deep, and it seems to me that I'm just not sure you've got enough building setback to accommodate that important landscape element. I think the way you've modulated the building is commendable. I like the way it looks from the roadway, the sidewalk, but those cypress are going to be an important part of the composition. There it is. You just skimmed right over it. The last, yeah, I saw it. I saw it. There it is. There it is. Just if you can zoom in. See, it only looks like you've got maybe 5 feet or so across there. See, perhaps you could consider the value of those plantings and conceding some part of the building because they're an important part of that composition. Let's see. I think those are all of my comments. Oh, and I commend you on that datum line that's a story and a half that circulates around the building. I think that really scales the building nicely. Thank you.
Board Member Black?
I don't have much to add. I really do agree with most of the comments that have been made. I think this iteration of the project is significantly, in my mind, more appealing than in size, bulk, and scale than the other. I like the notion of having an open parking lot with landscape instead of building going all the way out to the property lines. I'm still troubled by and Mr. Six mentioned something about articulating that green screen, the notion of it nearly 20 foot high and what you said 50 feet long. I'm just trying to imagine what the pedestrian experience is going to be along there. It's funny you should mention the hotel down on State Street because that came to mind as well because I think your office did that project, did they not? No?
The Harbor View Inn with the you talking about the green screens or
the ironwork?
The one that's got
into
the
the parking
really cool, like it creates like a
it's
Moyer pattern almost
it's the-
because they're
I thought that
offset.
was
The Harbor
really-
View Inn,
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. I mean, as an idea, I don't know if you can incorporate something like that here, but because it's
Yeah.
obviously different. But
Yeah, understood.
and then Nicole, I'm trying to understand the trees that you show along the northern property line there. What species were those?
Those are California sycamore, the large ones, the
Okay.
orange.
Okay. So it is a large upright variety of tree. Okay.
Yeah, I meant to offset with the Italian cypress, so try to get a little informality because the
Oh, you've
Italians
got
are so.
cypress in there too.
Yeah, the little small green guys. We want to continue them all the way to milpas, but not have them be so formal. So the spacing is regular on the sycamores, but we're trying to make it kind of deteriorate.
Well, as long as they don't,
Mesh.
conflict.
Yeah.
Massing wise. But that's not minor detail at this point. So, but otherwise, I think, I think the project's really come a long ways. Well, it's a different project, obviously, but It's quite nice.
Board Member Sovereign?
Yeah, different project. Shows you guys have made massive concessions. I mean, you really scaled it back significantly from what it was when it first came. I agree with all the previous comments. I really would put, if anything, just to emphasize that I think the western facade seems like it has a lot of potential. And I think that, per Commissioner Whalen's comment, like that eastern corner is great. And I think if you could put some more effort into the western facade, because it's just a little too generic and bland, I think more articulation also would make it seem less affronting behind the store. So, but I think you guys are on the right path, and I know that we're going to get there. So great work.
Board Member Anderson?
I think it feels like there needs to be some design work on the ground level, like echoing what many people have said, and that the scale feels oppressive to me. Proportionally, it feels large. Everything on it feels kind of big, kind of supersized relative to the human figures shown in the renderings. And I think if steps need to be taken to achieve lower heights in the structure, then they should be taken so that we can get a more compact and gentle and kind of more refined architecture. And I think right now it has the feeling of almost like a big box architecture, like a Target or something. And the quality of that is not good for, developing the character or the street. That when we read all these ABR guidelines, design guidelines, a lot of it's talking about that, how one moves in this kind of promenade-like way through the streets. So when you pull the green screen all the way up to 42 inches above the first floor level, you're kind of working in the opposite direction from creating that kind of personal, intimate, experience of the street. That's the primary comment.
Okay. I have a couple additional comments. I actually really like the curved corner that you have, and I feel like right now you have 3 different corners and you have 3 different languages between the corners, and I'm not sure that's bad. I'm not sure, but I do think your corners feel bulky, like that has been mentioned, and you could, as mentioned, flip your roof to the corners so that feels lower, and it pushes your roof deck back so they're not right up against the edge. I still think reducing the plate height, I'm still going to say that, and above the parking. I also like the band around the bottom, and maybe that's a different material, or if it's the same material, maybe just done a different way or a slightly different color. And I think the major word is articulation, which you've heard, and I think that will help you get there. And then also the activation along the street frontage is critical, and I think that's going to come through your articulation of the green screen, of the patio at the front, how that relates to people, how you see them, like a section through there would be helpful, and then as well as materiality. So, yeah, and I think keeping that storage section as like a secondhand thought from the Tri-County is going to be important. Okay, follow-up comments?
One last thing is, that loading dock.
Yeah. Well, yes, I think all of that's going to come through their iterations, and and I think definitely studying pullouts along that street would be helpful. They've done that throughout the east side, and it's been great for traffic. Okay, follow-up comments? Nope.
Well, given the place you're at, I'm sure there's a lot more articulation for the livability of those Italian cypress. Is there a way to increase the green stamp to the whole length of the parking, because can't you overhang parking, so at least that there's ground opportunities for watering and so forth and so on, and where is the security fence, because you're going to need that for the, so I have faith, what I'm saying, I have faith that all that will be improved and worked out. And my last comment is the trellis, again, at your stage here is, on the roof deck is just one box, and it would be fun to see it more, have it do something with the architecture below it rather than just a simple box up there.
To staff, is the next step for them to go to the staff hearing officer? Is that?
Not yet. The
Okay.
application is still incomplete, so it would need to be complete before going to staff hearing officer, and also needs to go through environmental review, which is going to include CEQA component, which
So
will need
would
to go
we
to
see
planning
it
commission.
before all that, or would it be?
It sounds like you want it to come back. You can make that.
Well,
part
I
of
don't
your-
know if we could find preliminary compatibility findings, like even preliminary today, so it might be a good idea for them to come back again.
Sure, if you would like them to come back, you can
Make
you
that
can
a
make
motion?
that, yeah.
Okay. How does the board feel? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. Chair Anderson, could we do like you did back in November and say, I think this I don't find that there's too much disagreement among the board members, and that if we could just make a motion to repeat or to refer back to our comments.
Was that what we did?
Yeah, and not have to generate a whole motion. And our motion would be to continue this, informally, I'm not on the record yet, just make a motion to continue this with the comments that have been stated in the mass of the meeting.
Board Member 6 and Chair Anderson, you would have to repeat your motion and start it with continue indefinitely back to the full board.
We did that, you did that on November.
I'm sorry, I think it would be helpful for us
To have a
and for
motion.
all of
Yeah,
you.
we'll do a motion.
Or whoever may be here when we come back, if we could get these. I don't think we have to do them board member by board
Yeah.
member, and since you all pretty much agreed on all the comments, we probably don't have to. But yeah, if we could get them spelled out, we'd prefer that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I'll make a motion for an indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments, that the board very much appreciates the reduction of the project, significant reduction of the project, leaving the market property and adjacent alone, and saving the iconic structure, produce Tri-County structure. Let's just go to that one. In regards to the Tri-County, we'd like to see the architecture of the new front deck and trellis being more harmonious with the architecture of the market. We would, and I'm going to add a little bit that perhaps that architecture could be a little more transparent to see more of the original architecture. I'm not going to get into the length of the loading docks and so forth and so on. That's then on the residential unit. Again, the significant reduction is positive. We find that the north elevation is very much improved and successful. that the board is concerned of the apparent boxiness of the structure and have recommendations for roof lines and roof plate heights to be varied in order to reduce the boxiness of this apparent structure. Some of the suggestions for the change in roof lines should be a steeper pitched roof that perhaps that climbs up onto and encroaches into the roof deck in order to take advantage of more roof from distant sight lines. That the roof balcony should be looked at to pull back from the perimeter to, again, articulate and extend roof heights. That on the west elevation, the two flanking masses are too boxy and should be differentiated and articulated, especially at their roof lines. That might study the solid balcony railing at the third floor in order to completely separate the two flanking masses. That the 45-degree cuts at the flanking masses of that west elevation should be finessed and more articulated. That suggests that the balconies at the midsection of the south elevation be more linear and reflect the successful balcony massing at the north elevation. That the board is concerned about the size and plainness of the green screens on both south property and the south elevation and the north elevation, and suggest more articulation, perhaps grillage in the openings, and limit the green screen to reflect some of those openings and patterns that are in the building. The entry doors to the fourth floor of the courtyard should have some kind of weather protection on them. That should study further any way to increase the room for the Italian cypress at the north elevation. My brain is full.
I can second that.
Okay.
And with your agreement, add that the board is concerned with the neighborhood compatibility on Calle Puerto Vallarta, and that the size, bulk, and scale of that south elevation be studied to reduce that and bring it into a compatibility with the neighborhood.
The apparent mass.
The apparent.
Apparent mass,
The
yes.
apparent mass.
Okay. I will agree with that with the added word apparent. 'Cause
Apparently
we-
agreed to.
We're not taking units out.
Anything else?
What does apparent mean? Can you just clarify that?
Well, as we work with roof forms and so forth, we're not reducing the program, but we're finding all kinds of architectural tricks to, to make it look smaller or more articulate. And
Yeah, it's open, I think, and that's, in terms of moving forward, it's hard to imagine a more specific, that the developer's asking for specific feedback and
I
telling
think we
apparent
understand what
mass.
the comment is
We
referring
understand
to.
what
Yeah.
apparent means, how it appears. That's what apparent means.
yeah, for instance, the suggestion to lower plate heights at the roof level. Right now, they have one continuous plate height, and they have parapet, solid parapet above that. So, as we've mentioned prior, that having roof forms with lower eaves and so forth bring down the mass of that building,
Yeah, bring the scale down.
bring the scale down.
Yeah, the comment, though, was about the street front experience, right?
It's the neighborhood compatibility with the structures across the street was the comment.
If I may, the architect said that they understand. So are we just going in circles right now?
You like curves.
Yeah, I like circles. Okay. Okay, anything else? Let us take a vote. Wait. Can you speak into the microphone?
There was a comment about stepping back the addition to the Tri-County building, so it's subservient to the
Yeah,
existing building.
I think a very minor.
Said something about that.
You also had mentioned showing the locations of the buildings on the opposite side of
Yeah,
Calle
it would
Puerto
be nice
Vallarta.
to have a silhouette, a dotted silhouette of the building's foreground.
And the site plan adjacent.
A site, do you want an elevation also?
No, on the site plan.
Okay.
The location
The
of the
footprint.
adjacent building.
All right, very good. So add to the elevation, add to the motion, we'd like to see the footprints of all the structures along Calle Puerto Vallarta. And
Agreed.
Okay, you guys good? Okay. All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon? Board Member Six?
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
And we will adjourn our meeting for September 3rd. Thank you.